Welcome to Alpha Tales by Rowan Kincaid. This is the Bloodmoon Luna, a paranormal fantasy of power, restraint, and a Luna whose wolf sleeps when it should awaken. The story begins now. Chapter 1. His office was glass and skyline, quiet power wrapped in steel. Wyatt Bloodmoon stood at the window, phone pressed to his ear, the city reflecting hard edges across the panes. Broad-shouldered, tan skin catching the light, deep brown hair trimmed clean but carrying the hint of a curl that refused polish. He carried the kind of presence that made human executives straighten their ties without knowing why. His wolf, Havoc, was always near the surface, coiled, restless, as if the glass walls could barely contain him. His voice was clipped, iron wrapped in civility. Restructure the term sheet. If they want 6%, remind them they'll lose the partnership entirely. Position it as a choice. Send it back. The door slammed wide, hard enough to rattle the glass. Sharp, commanding, get off the phone, now. Joselyn filled the threshold like a blade unsheathed. Tall, lithe, dark eyes missing nothing, she crossed the room in a sweep of skirts. Her hair, rich black with a faint sheen of mahogany, framed a face too controlled for her years. 5 years as Luna had carved poise into her bones, but defiance burned hotter beneath the surface. Her scent, vanilla and wildflowers, cut sharp through the air. Havoc pricked at it with interest. Wyatt's jaw locked. He ended the call with deliberate calm, setting the phone down as though it might shatter otherwise. Flat, controlled. What is it now? She dropped the papers on his desk. They skidded, fanned, then stilled. Even. Precise. The divorce contract. 5 years fulfilled. And this, her gaze cut to him, sharp as glass. Your addendum. You expect me to stay on as Luna? Smile. Host. Groom the next one? A beat. No, Wyatt. That part ends with the contract. Wyatt straightened, every inch of him command. His golden eyes cut to hers, unreadable, measured, authoritative. The pack can't go without a Luna. We will look weak, she snapped back instantly. You're the alpha. Figure it out. I'm not standing in your shadow while every hopeful she-wolf lines up to be next. Wyatt exhaled, a short, impatient huff, dismissive, cooling irritation. Don't be dramatic. You're turning this into emotion again, Joselyn. Try logic for once. She leaned across the desk, palms braced, spine straight as steel. Quiet, but lethal. I'm being precise. We both did our time. I'm done. Havoc stirred beneath Wyatt's skin, ears pricked, a low growl pressing against his ribs. He forced it down with iron control. Low, restrained, walking out the second the ink dries hurts the pack. Stability matters. Our rank matters. Her laugh cut sharp, humorless. You only remember we when it benefits you. This isn't about me. Her tone softened and landed harder than the anger had. It's never been about me. She straightened, chin high. I'm leaving. I'll go to neutral territory. Wyatt's jaw worked, a warning under the words. Neutral territory isn't the sanctuary you think it is. I'll take my chances. They stared each other down. 5 years of careful distance, snapping like a line pulled too tight. Vanilla and wildflowers sharpened in the air. Havoc pressed. Curious. Wyatt leashed a wolf with habit more than thought. Muscles tight with restraint. She shoved the papers away again, as if the parchment burned her skin. Steady. Final. You can command boardrooms and packs, Wyatt, but you can't command me to keep pretending. She turned and left. The door clicked shut, a quieter wound than a slam. Silence. Then, a knock. Sebastian strode in like he owned the oxygen. Tall, broad-shouldered, his suit cut sharp across a frame built for both meetings and battle, Sandy. Hair just mussed enough to look intentional. Beta charm in every step, the strategist always lurking beneath the grin. Light, dry. That looked spirited. Wyatt didn't look away from the skyline. Flat. She's being difficult. Sebastian tilted his head. Wild thought. Maybe she's tired of the world's most polite hostage situation. Wyatt cut him a look. Sebastian lifted his hands, grin intact. Kidding. Mostly. Wyatt exhaled through his nose, temper cooling into focus. We tell her about the council selection at dinner. My father will help make the case, Sebastian murmured, amused. Announce the hardest sell after lamb and wine. What could go wrong? Wyatt didn't smile. Havoc paced once, unsettled, then went quiet, firm, unyielding. She can't just vanish the moment the contract ends. Not now. Sebastian's gaze sharpened. Because of the evaluation. Because of the pack, Wyatt said automatically. Then, quieter, and the evaluation. Sebastian nodded as he turned for the door. I'll make sure the board meeting doesn't implode while you juggle destiny. When the door shut, Wyatt stared at the scattered papers Joselyn had left behind. Her scent lingered, sharp as a dare. 5 years of separate wings, separate beds, separate lives paraded as perfect. What bound them now was habit, not heart, just enough to keep the world convinced they still stood as one. Chapter 2. Late afternoon sun bled across the fields behind the main hall, gilding grass and fur alike. Laughter and the yips of young wolves filled the air as parents watched from the sidelines. Joselyn stood at the center, notes in hand, voice calm as she guided a line of pups. The air smelled of grass and warm earth, warm with the scent of joy she'd helped build. The pup trials were her creation, an afternoon for young wolves to test balance, scent, and instinct in front of their families. She had spent weeks preparing, checking lists twice, ensuring every pup would leave with pride and a token in hand. For once the day belonged to something she had built. She crouched beside a pup teetering on a narrow beam, his lower lip trembling, soft, grounding. Look at me, steady feet, steady breath. That's it. He crossed without falling. Cheers followed, bright and genuine. Joselyn's smile broke clean and radiant, the kind that made the whole field feel steadier. The pup's mother clapped, and even the warriors near the edge softened. Then, the air changed. The shift came before the sound, before the footsteps, cedar, storm, power held in check. Silence rippled outward as heads turned toward the path from the pack house. Wyatt arrived late, still in his charcoal suit, cufflinks catching the sun, the alpha fresh from a boardroom, polished and sharp where the field was dust and laughter. He didn't slow as he approached, didn't smile, didn't soften to the scene unfolding in front of him. He joined Sebastian at the edge of the crowd, low, critical. Half the crowd isn't watching the pups. If we're going to host this, it should at least look orderly. A trace of dry amusement edged Sebastian's voice. They're just having fun, Alpha. Don't look so offended by it. Wyatt's glance said it all, exactly the kind of thing his beta would say. Before he turned back to the field, he meant to find fault, but the longer he watched, the harder it became. Joselyn's calm steadied the pups, her voice cutting clean through noise without command. The pack followed her easily, without the weight of authority. They adored her, and he hated how right that felt. Pride kept the words locked behind his teeth. Joselyn felt the shift around her, the way smiles dimmed under his presence. She stood taller, pretending not to notice the way the pack's eyes slid from her to him, as if leadership had changed hands the moment he arrived. One of the older pups hesitated at the next jump. Joselyn knelt again, voice low and steady. You're fine, take your time. The boy inhaled, about to move. Wyatt's voice cut across the field, firm, public. He needs firmness, not comfort. Joselyn didn't look at him. He needs someone to believe he can do it. The pup jumped, landed sure. Applause followed, but the warmth had thinned. Even the breeze felt cautious now. Wyatt saw the way the boy beamed under Joselyn's praise, saw parents lean toward her approval, and the smallest, most dangerous flicker of admiration cut through his irritation. At the refreshment tables, Ariel's voice drifted out, smooth, pleasant, practiced. She does make it look effortless, doesn't she? A pause. Brave thing, hosting a shifting trial when she's never shifted herself. A few soft laughs followed. Quick, quiet. Joselyn heard. She didn't react. Her smile held, perfect and unbroken, as she guided the next group of pups through the finish line. Wyatt, hands in his pockets and a frown too thoughtful to admit, noticed none of it. By the time the final horn sounded, the sun had dipped lower. Joselyn thanked the volunteers, congratulated each pup, and lingered after the crowd dispersed. The laughter, the music, the dust on her hands, a small world she would lose the moment she walked away. By the time she reached the Luna suite, the house had gone still. Warm light, soft air, the faint trace of vanilla and wildflowers. Wyatt had never belonged in this side of the pack house. His presence filled it differently, sharper, colder. He knocked once, then stepped inside, controlled, assessing. Why did it take you so long to finish up? The sight of her, sunlight still clinging to her skin, a faint streak of dust along her wrist, caught his attention despite himself. Half the pack cleared out an hour ago. I was closing it down, Joselyn replied, unclasping her sash without looking at him, even. Pointed. That's what leadership looks like, in case you've forgotten. His gaze caught on the loose strand of hair near her cheek, critical, restrained. The event dragged. Too many parents in the ring. Next time, keep tighter control. It looked disorganized. Joselyn turned, meeting his eyes head on. You mean it looked alive? They're pups, Wyatt, not soldiers. Discipline starts early. Then so does loyalty, she shot back. And you don't get that by barking orders from the sidelines. The silence that followed vibrated with challenge. Wyatt's shoulders squared, his aura rolling out just enough to test her. You could at least pretend loyalty until the contract ends. Appearances still matter. She stepped forward, closing the distance until Cedar and Storm met Vanilla and Wildflowers. Then stop making me fake it. If you want loyalty, earn it. For a heartbeat, something flickered between them. Exasperation, respect, something harder to name. Finally he exhaled, frustration flashing across his face. Dinner's at 6. I know, she said, calm but cutting. Try not to be late to that, too. He lingered, long enough to look like he might say more, then turned for the door. The click of it closing left the air still trembling. Joselyn stayed where she was, pulse steady, jaw set. She didn't look after him. The echo faded. Resolve filled the silence he'd left behind. She smoothed her hair, straightened her spine. Unshaken. Chapter 3. The dining room glowed warm with candlelight, the oak table gleaming, crystal catching firelight in sharp glints. Wyatt's mother, Helena, rose first when Joselyn entered. "Sweetheart," Helena said, gathering her close, the scent of sage and lemon clinging to her warmth. Her lustrous hair framed features still luminous with the faint glow of her wolf. Her gowns, soft blues and greens, matched the serenity in her tone, but beneath that gentleness ran steel the pack never dared forget. "You look tired. Come sit by me." Joselyn let herself be folded into the embrace, her dark curls loose down her back, the fall of it ink against her olive skin. She wore no jewels save the small crest pinned at her shoulder, formality without vanity. Candlelight caught in her eyes, brown so deep they seemed almost black, watchful even when her face held composure. The pale green dress she had chosen was simple, the color of wild grass after rain, its elegance rooted in restraint, not flourish. Wyatt's father, Luther, rose, decades older than Wyatt, though time had barely touched him. A few silver strands glinted at his temples, more mark of rank than years. His face held the clean lines of command, his gaze steady, ageless. "Evening, Joselyn." A trace of warmth softened his tone. His smile reached his eyes, gold still flickering faint beneath the calm. "Good evening," she said, her smile softening for Helena and Luther. Then to the head of the table, a measured nod. "Alpha." Wyatt's reply matched it, low and even. "Joselyn." Wyatt's presence dominated without effort, broad shoulders taut in a black suit, tie discarded, dark brown hair brushed back with deliberate precision. His jaw was iron, cheekbones cut sharp, golden eyes watchful. Servers flowed in and out, setting lamb, roasted root vegetables, wine. For a few minutes, there was only the comfort of clinking cutlery and Helena asking about the pup's lessons, Joselyn's voice smoothing into even answers. It almost felt normal. Luther set down his fork. The room's center of gravity shifted. "There's something we need to discuss," he said, voice careful. "About the contract." Joselyn's fingers tightened on the napkin, then fell still in her lap. Beneath the table, Helena's hand found hers, rings cool against her skin. Luther slid a weathered parchment closer, its gold seal catching the light like a brand. "There's a clause. In the event ending the marriage risks instability, the contract extends in 30-day increments until stability is assured." Joselyn's breath caught. She had pored over that contract the night they signed it, hands shaking, eyes burning. She had not seen this. Helena's face was sad but unflinching. It should have been clearer. "This isn't only about the pack, Joselyn. It's about Wyatt. The Chancellor is weighing alphas for the council lead. If you leave, he looks divided. And if he fails, Bloodmoon loses ground." Joselyn straightened, her dark eyes sparking like flint. "So, my freedom props up his chances." Wyatt's jaw flexed. "It isn't just ambition. It's legacy. That seat is judged among the best of the best. If I don't claim it, another alpha will stand over me, and I won't be in anyone's shadow." Joselyn leaned forward, fury bright in her gaze, candlelight cutting across the fine lines of her cheekbones. "So, my cage is the cost of your pride." Wyatt's voice came before he could stop it, sharp as broken glass. "You think you're the only one who sacrificed? I gave up my chosen mate, the same as you. I married for duty, same as you." Joselyn's laugh was low, bitter. Her lips curved, but her eyes were bleak. "Duty. You sit at the head of the table. I sit in chains." The words hung heavy. For a moment, even Havoc went still. Wyatt's voice snapped out. "You think you've been the only one trapped? Try leading with a Luna, whose wolf never wakes." The words hit like a slap. The room froze. Havoc snarled hard and sudden in the back of his mind. At his words, a warning. Wyatt flinched almost imperceptibly. Joselyn's face didn't crack. It simply closed. She rose, skirts brushing the stone floor. Excuse me, Joselyn, Helena started, but she was already walking, spine straight, steps even. The door eased shut behind her. Helena's voice cut through the silence, eyes bright with hurt. You didn't just shame her, Wyatt. You shamed your Luna, your name, and the seat you stand in. 5 years of sacrifice, and you still treat her like a contract instead of a choice. That is beneath you, and it is your disgrace. Luther's eyes burned gold, the air thick with dominance. His voice dropped to a quiet threat. You ever speak to her like that again, and I'll remind you what an alpha really is. Wyatt said nothing. The wolf in him bristled, then stilled. Their disappointment settled like a collar around his throat, heavy and earned. She'll cool off, Wyatt muttered. The words hit the quiet and stayed there, hollow as the space she'd left behind. Chapter 4. She hadn't cried at the table. In her room, a room that would be hers for only 30 more days, Joselyn sat at the bed's edge, spine still taut from holding against Wyatt's words. Burden, wolf that never wakes. Each syllable replayed like steel driven between her ribs. She had kept her mask flawless, every line of her posture declaring dignity he refused to grant her. But masks cracked in private. The first tear startled her, the rest she allowed. When it was done, she rose. At the mirror, her reflection told the truth. Eyes rimmed red, cheekbones sharpened from weeks of lost appetite, lips pressed thin. She washed her face, cool water banishing salt but not ache, and began to pack a small bag. Not reckless, not dramatic, just necessary. The cabin had always been her sanctuary. The woods remembered her father's laughter, her mother's songs. Even after the ambush, when blood stained the leaves and rogues were cut down one by one, the land itself had seemed to shield her. No rogue had dared cross that line again. She slipped down the side stairs, pale gown brushing stone, movements quiet but not furtive. An Omega nearly collided with her, a slight girl, dark braids falling into wide eyes. Luna, she whispered, voice trembling with concern. Joselyn touched her arm gently, grounding her. It's only for the night. Her smile was small, but it softened the girl's fear. The Omega dipped her head and let her pass, not indifference, respect. The pack had always cared. It was Wyatt who hadn't chosen to see it. The drive was pure memory. Narrow roads coiling between pines, moonlight gilding the lake's black curve, the wheel steady under her hands, as if she had traced the path 1,000 times. When she stepped into the clearing, the night unfolded. Pine bit sharp in her lungs. The lake whispered faint against the far shore. Moonlight poured silver over her upturned face. She closed her eyes and breathed it in. She remembered her first shift, the single night her wolf had answered. Zora, fierce and silver as moonfire, born for one heartbeat before the silence claimed her again. Zora had been silver once too, fur radiant under a moon like this, for one heartbeat, glorious, then screaming, then her father falling, then silence. Sometimes on nights steeped in silver, Joselyn thought she felt her again. Not voice, never voice, but a pressure in her chest, a low vibration in her blood, a hum that wasn't hers. Her throat tightened. I miss them, she whispered, words torn into the dark. The trees answered only with their silence, close and heavy, wrapping her in a cloak neither cruel nor kind. Yet even here, away from him, the faintest trace of cedar and storm lingered in memory. Wyatt's scent, etched into her skin like smoke that refused to fade. A ghost she had not invited and could not yet escape. Chapter 5. It started with a single wrong note in the wind, a sourness beneath pine and damp earth, like rot where there should have been clean night. Joselyn's eyes snapped open, her pulse spiked, body already moving before the low growl rolled out of the trees. Hungry, answering. 3 shadows peeled free of the forest, eyes gleaming wild and feral. Her grip found a fallen branch thick as her wrist. She backed into the center of the clearing, every instinct screaming. No closer, she warned, though words meant nothing to rogues. The first lunged, she swung. Wood met skull with a crack that rang through bone. The beast staggered, 1 step, 2, then claws raked her arm open, fire lancing from elbow to shoulder. She gasped, pain flaring white. Branch raised for one last desperate swing. A black streak detonated from the tree line. Havoc hit midair. Impact cracking like stone split. Wolf and rogue went down in a snarl of fur and blood, the kill fast and final. He spun, massive shoulders coiled, fangs flashing white as he took the second by the throat. The snap echoed, brutal. The third prowled, circling, weight shifting for an opening. Havoc feinted left, struck right, jaws clamped, tearing. Blood sprayed hot across leaves. The rogue thrashed once, then stilled. Clean, efficient, lethal. Silence slammed back into the clearing, too loud after the chaos. Joselyn's knees threatened to buckle, the branch slipping from her hands. She was shaking, cold sweat in the warm night. The wolf turned. Huge, midnight black, shoulders higher than her chest, eyes molten amber locked on her. Havoc's chest heaved, each breath steaming in the moonlight. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his head in deference, the bow of a creature who saw what his counterpart denied. Her breath hitched. "Havoc," she whispered. Branches snapped. Gamma, Stefan, burst into the clearing, cloth bundle under his arm, chest heaving. His gaze swept the corpses. Then Joselyn, her sleeve soaked in blood. Luna. Sit, now. Havoc. Paced the perimeter. When at last he vanished into the trees, Wyatt came back out, barefoot, shirtless, pants pulled on quick, blood streaked his ribs, human, but still edged with the wolf. He crossed the clearing in 3 strides and caught her wrist before she could pull away, tilting her arm into the moonlight. His voice was rough, jagged with something raw. "You call this safe?" Her head lifted, steady despite the pain. "Rogues don't come here. Not in years. They did tonight." Guilt flickered. Dinner, his words, but he buried it beneath reflexive irritation. "You should have told someone. I needed a moment. Softer now, just a moment." For an instant the heat in his chest wasn't fury. He released her and snatched the cloth Stefan offered, pressing it hard to her wound. His tone brooked no argument. "Wrap it. We're going home." Stefan's eyes flicked between them. Alpha rigid, Luna bleeding. Then he crouched, hands steady, practice from 100 battlefield wounds. The cloth pulled snug around Joselyn's torn skin. His voice dropped low so only she heard. "One day, you'll let me do my job without giving me heart failure." The quip cracked through the iron air, thin armor against fear. Despite the sting, Joselyn's mouth curved faintly. Her eyes met his in a flicker of acknowledgement. The clearing reeked of iron and pine. Beneath it, faint but unmistakable, her fear. Havoc's rage, Wyatt's guilt. At the tree line, headlights carved pale gold through the trees. Stefan's SUV idled, engine warm, exhaust clouding white in the night. He opened the back door. Joselyn slid in first, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the window as if the forest might follow her home. Wyatt followed. Leather groaned under his weight. For the first mile, no one spoke. Pines blurred into black ribs. The heater whispered. The bandage pulsed in time with Joselyn's heartbeat. "You think I won't post guards after this?" Wyatt's voice broke the silence, low and rough. Gravel dragged across steel. Her eyes didn't. "Leave the dark glass. You think I'll live in a cage?" Stefan's knuckles tightened on the wheel, then eased. The silence went taut as a bowstring. The seat creaked as Wyatt leaned back, Havoc still agitated beneath his skin. He forced the wolf down. His voice sharpened into control. Border schedule changes. No more solo walks, ever. Joselyn didn't blink. "I didn't ask your permission. You're the Luna." The word thudded like a hammer between them. "Your choices have an echo." Her reply was softer, sharper, the blade slipping past his armor. "So do yours." The wipers hissed once across a dry windshield, then stilled. Wyatt studied her profile in the dash's glow, the perfect line of her face, the defiant set of her mouth. Rage no longer fit in his chest. It kept burning into something heavier, something that edged too close to regret. He rasped instead. "Next time, you won't walk away with just scratches." Her answer landed like a knife. "Then maybe next time you won't give me a reason." Silence stretched thin as ice. Wyatt's jaw ticked. "Medical's ready," Stefan said finally, tone clipped back to neutral. "Stitches if we need them. Tetanus." Joselyn let out a long breath, as if she'd been holding it for miles. "I'll manage. You'll be treated," Wyatt cut in. "Absolute." She didn't argue. That somehow felt like the strangest victory of the night. The pack house rose from the dark, lights warm against stone. Warriors at the gate straightened as the SUV rolled through. Nostrils flared with the scent of alarm and adrenaline. Stefan pulled up under the portico and was out before the engine finished ticking. He opened Jocelyn's door, offering his hand. She took it briefly, then stood alone, shoulders squared as though she hadn't bled at all. Joselyn turned for the steps. The shift of wind carried her scent, clean beneath the blood. Wyatt watched her go, the frustration in his chest tightening into something far harder to name, something that did not feel like control. Chapter 6. The Grey Moon Alpha's office breathed control. Dark wood, glass walls, and a view that cut across the forests he'd carved from nothing. Late light poured over Michael like polish on steel, his black hair always perfect. His suit cut sharp enough to look dangerous if he moved too quickly. Broad shoulders, clean lines, a stillness honed to precision. Every inch of him spoke of power earned, not inherited. Even his silence held command. Weston stood before the desk, tablet in hand, posture easy but exact, the way a beta carried both confidence and obedience. Word keeps circling back the same, he said. The evaluations start soon. Every whisper puts Bloodmoon's alpha forward to lead the council. Michael didn't look away from the map pulsing across the glass wall. Wyatt. The name tasted like ash. After the border raids, our standing took a hit, Weston continued. The council is calling it weakness. Michael's jaw flexed, the smallest betrayal of irritation, before his voice cooled again. Weakness? He tapped the glowing line between territories. I clawed this land from nothing. No inheritance, no father's name to hide behind. Wyatt was born into the power I bled for. When two dynasties merged, they handed him a throne. He turned, eyes a cold, precise gray. He didn't earn it, Weston. He had it wrapped in silk, a beat, and he chose her. The silence that followed was clean, deliberate. Michael's kind of silence. He poured bourbon, the motion unhurried. The soft chime of glass filled the space Weston didn't try to occupy. A knock broke it. Enter, Michael said. A gamma stepped in, posture clipped. Alpha, there's a she-wolf from Bloodmoon requesting an audience. Michael didn't look up. If she wants an audience, she can make an appointment. She claims it concerns Bloodmoon directly, the gamma replied, and says you'll want to see what she carries. That earned his attention. He set the glass down. Eyes cut toward the door. Send her in. Weston, wait. Outside. Weston hesitated only long enough to incline his head. He left without protest. The door closed on the kind of quiet that invited consequence. She entered with poise sharpened into weaponry, flame hair drawn smooth, perfume coiling like a promise. Ariel moved as if the room had been waiting for her. Alpha Michael. She bowed. He stayed standing, gaze cool. You know the risk of walking into my den uninvited. He waved almost lazily for her to sit. I do, she said evenly. I wouldn't risk it without cause. Then speak. His tone was the edge of a blade, lethal, measured. Ariel crossed to the desk, setting a slim folder on the polished surface. Your rival's perfect union, she said, is parchment and performance. Michael opened it, eyes scanning the signatures, the seals, the clauses. When he looked up again, his expression hadn't changed, but the temperature in the room had. A marriage by law, he said quietly, not by bond. She met his gaze without flinching. It expires soon. You risk treason bringing this, he said, voice silk over stone. Why? Her smile was small, deliberate. I should have been his Luna. Before politics, before her. Wyatt was mine once, and I want him back. Michael stood over her, studying her the way a wolf studies its prey before it strikes. You expect me to help drag him from the woman you envy? No. Her answer came smooth. I can't expose it myself, but I know what happens when a Luna is humiliated. A pause. She doesn't stay. She leaves. Use it. He watched her a long beat, not with interest, but with the calculation of an alpha measuring leverage. You risk a great deal walking in here, and I hope you make it worth it, she said, lifting her head. She turned for the door. His voice stopped her halfway. One more thing. Her hand paused on the latch. He smiled, without warmth. If you ever forget whose den you walked into, I'll make sure you remember, long enough to regret it. She left without a backward glance. The scent she carried, copper, perfume, defiance, lingered in the air. Silence, calculation in its place. When the latch clicked, Michael reopened the folder and traced the gold seal with a fingertip. A contract, he murmured, not fate. The council's model alpha, handed a throne propped by paper. If the chancellor's measure of a leader was unity, the revelation of a staged union would be corrosive. He poured bourbon and watched the amber slide in the glass. If the evaluation drew attention, and the right question was asked at the right time, Bloodmoon's shine could be dulled. All he needed was to be present, near enough to witness, patient enough to let the cracks widen. The door eased open. Weston slipped back into the office, cautious. Worth your time? Michael slid the folder into the drawer and locked it. The chancellor's asked me to observe Bloodmoon's evaluation. I'll accept. He took a slow sip of bourbon, eyes on the distant crest glowing through the window. You'd walk straight into Bloodmoon's den? Michael smiled as if discussing the weather, though something in his eyes promised ruin. I will. The chancellor's invitation is a door left open. I'll walk through. A pause. Let the council watch their golden alpha crack. His smile thinned. And when he does, I'll give them their solution. Another beat, and take the Luna he never deserved. Michael watched fire reflect across the glass. His smile was slow, deliberate, every alpha crack somewhere, and he had just found where Bloodmoon bleeds. Chapter 7 Wyatt's office reeked of ash and iron, last night's chaos still clinging to the walls. He sat behind his desk, sleepless, every breath still echoing with Joselyn's heartbeat against his palms. The door slammed open, Stefan nearly hitting the frame. "Alpha, the Chancellor is on his way. ETA 45 minutes. Wyatt came to his feet. "He's due tomorrow, I know." Stefan's chest heaved. "He's early." Wyatt's power rolled out like a pressure drop. "Gather the unit. Have the Omegas prep the guest wing, and shift patrols east." He cut a glance past Stefan. "Where is Joselyn?" Stefan hesitated. "I haven't checked. There hasn't been time." For a beat, silence was worse than an answer. Havoc pressed sharp against Wyatt's ribs. Wyatt's eyes went gold. "Find her." By the time the black SUVs climbed the drive, the Alpha unit was lined on the steps. Helena and Luther stood to Wyatt's right, composed. Sebastian to his left, easy charm replaced with beta steel. Chancellor Alaric stepped out first. Tall, regal, eyes the cool amber of banked flame. His presence carried the quiet weight of judgment even before he spoke. Wyatt inclined his head. "You're early," Wyatt said, respectful, though without warmth. "I am," Alaric replied, unbothered. The dismissal in it made Wyatt's jaw tighten. "Curious," Alaric continued. "Everyone is here, except the Luna." Wyatt's jaw locked. "She's here," came Jocelyn's voice as she hurried up the steps, breath not yet even. A strip of clean bandage showed beneath her sleeve, healer's salve glistening faintly on torn skin. Alaric's eyes narrowed, keen as a blade. He stepped forward close enough to scent the truth. "You were injured." "Last night," she said evenly. "Rogues." "The scent still clings," Alaric said, gaze cutting to Wyatt. "It carries the story of what wasn't guarded." Wyatt's shoulders squared. The attack was contained. The perimeter is secure. "After the fact," Alaric said mildly. The words landed heavier than they sounded. His amber eyes lingered on Wyatt, weight measured, before he turned toward the doors. "Let us begin." Only then did Wyatt register the other Alpha at Alaric's shoulder. Wyatt turned, gaze hard, voice silk sharp. "Michael." He had grown up alongside Joselyn, but the way he lingered near her had always grated. Alaric's tone was almost too casual. "Michael is here at my request. He will observe alongside me." Wyatt didn't look away. "Don't mistake it for welcome." Michael's mouth curved, slow, mocking. A shadow of the boy who once thought Joselyn would be his, wouldn't dream of it. A trace of satisfaction edged his tone. Alaric's gaze flicked between them, calm as banked flame. "Then let us begin." Wyatt inclined his head once, jaw tight. Havoc pressed restless against his ribs, coiled and waiting. Together, they moved toward the doors. Bloodmoon opened itself to scrutiny. Chapter 8. Alaric had requested a full walkthrough of Bloodmoon's operations. He wanted the territory up close, its systems, its people, its cracks. Wyatt hadn't planned to parade the pack this soon, but with the Chancellor's early arrival, he had no choice. "Let's see what strength looks like in Bloodmoon," Alaric said, his voice calm but edged with expectation. "Training grounds." Wyatt's stride didn't falter. Sebastian and Stefan flanked him, the Alpha unit moving as one. Dust rose as warriors slammed into the dirt. Sebastian's command cracked across the ring, sharp, precise, and the fighter corrected instantly. "They drill daily?" Alaric asked. "Before dawn," Wyatt said. His gaze swept the fighters. "Bloodmoon bleeds here so we don't bleed on the field." They moved on. The forge spat sparks, the air heavy with smoke. Apprentices froze as Wyatt gestured to racks of gleaming steel. 6 blades a month, everyone accounted for. Trade and supply lines stay strong because of it. Our allies know Bloodmoon can arm more than just itself. Alaric tested the balance of a sword, then set it back. The healer's wings smelled of thyme and bloodroot. Wyatt held up a vial. Silver-burn salve, 3 months' supply. From a table near the back, Jocelyn's voice carried, warm and sure. "Too bitter. Adjust it, or the pups will spit it out." The healers relaxed at once. Laughter broke the tension. In the kitchens, heat and chatter pressed close. Joselyn steadied a tray in a young Omega's hands, smiling until the girl's shoulders eased. Around her, the kitchen hummed brighter, smoother. Finally, the schoolhouse. Chalk dust hung in the air. Pups chanted uneven runes. A girl giggled when her chalk snapped. 2 boys jostled shoulders until an Omega clucked them still. One boy faltered over a rune, frustration pinching his face. Joselyn crouched beside him, hands steadying his. Like this, slow, clear. His line straightened. When the rune came clean, his grin flashed gap-toothed. A ripple of laughter spread through the class. "She inspires them," Alaric observed. Joselyn looked up. "Because care matters as much as discipline." Wyatt's answer cut through the moment. cold, public. Care without discipline breeds weakness. Even pups know rules before comfort. Without it, they're prey. The boy kept grinning at Joselyn, oblivious, but Sebastian's brow flicked. Stefan went still. Joselyn's smile tightened. Her eyes slid toward Wyatt, sharp, questioning, before she smoothed the boy's hair again. By mid-afternoon, as they crossed the main corridor, an Omega darted up, cheeks flushed. "Luna, we moved your things to the Alpha suite. I hope it is to—" Joselyn cut in quickly. "Thank you, dear." Her smile was perfect, brittle at the edges. "That will be all." The girl fled. They had kept separate quarters since the wedding contract, a fact kept quiet from the pack. Wyatt's jaw flexed once, tight as wire. Behind his stillness, calculation burned. Alaric and Michael had both seen the crack. Wyatt knew it. He banked the reaction, forcing his face to stone as if he'd meant for them to. Havoc settled, easing back in quiet approval. Michael's eyes flicked, catching the implication. Separate quarters. His gaze lingered. No smirk, no word, just the precise attention of a wolf noting where the armor split, already calculating how best to press a claw there later. A weakness observed is a weakness remembered. Chapter 9. The council evaluations had not yet begun, but Bloodmoon already felt like a stage, every glance sharpened, every silence heavy with judgment. Joselyn felt it in the hush of Omegas as she passed, in the restless pacing of warriors in the yard, in the brittle tension braided through Wyatt himself. She turned a corner toward the library, and stopped short. Michael was already there, leaning in the corridors, half light like he had been waiting. His presence filled the space with a quiet inevitability. "Luna," he greeted, smooth, faintly mocking. "Strange hearing the title on you, when it should have been mine to give." Jocelyn's eyes hardened. Her voice stayed steady, edged with truth. "Michael, you and I both know it was never yours to give." His gaze brushed her face, then drifted lower, deliberate. "I couldn't help but notice the lesson earlier. Care against discipline." A pause, a tidy performance, his smile edged sharp. "But it seems your Alpha preferred to silence you." Jocelyn's eyes hardened further, her voice cut like glass. "You mistake strength for silence. I don't need you to interpret my Alpha, or me." Michael tilted his head, silver-gray eyes catching the light. A Luna should never be made small for her Alpha's pride. Her gaze lifted. "And I'll never be made small by you." He stepped closer, his nearness deliberate, suffocating. "If you ever feel unsafe—" The pause lingered, heavy, intimate. "Know this, I would never have let rogues near you. Gray Moon would never silence you. My door is open." The warmth of him pressed too close. Joselyn stiffened. Her voice cut sharp. "You mistake me, Michael. I'm not yours to offer, and I never will be." His eyes glinted, satisfied, as though even her fury pleased him. He leaned just enough that his breath grazed her hairline. Deliberate, claiming. Havoc's growl tore through the corridor. Joselyn startled, turning as Wyatt strode in. His aura rolled off him, heavy and merciless. Command rippled like thunder. "Leave us," he said to Joselyn, clipped and final. His eyes never left Michael. She hesitated, then obeyed. The click of her heels faded into silence. 2 Alphas remained. Wyatt closed the distance. Power radiated sharp enough to make the walls hum. "You'll keep your distance," he said, voice low, honed to a blade. "My Luna isn't yours to linger near." Michael's mouth curved into a deliberate smirk. "Your Luna?" He let the words hang, soft, as a knife's edge. "You sound sure about that, Wyatt." A pause. "You forget she was almost mine once." Gold edged Wyatt's eyes. Havoc pressed hot beneath his skin. "Set foot near her again," Wyatt said quietly, "and you won't live to question how sure I am." For a moment, Michael didn't shift, didn't flinch. Only a flicker at his jaw betrayed tension. Then, in mock deference, he inclined his head. "As you wish, Alpha." The promise beneath it was anything but obedience. Chapter 10. The Alpha suite smelled of lavender and cedar. Her and him wound too tight together. The scent clung to the air, to his skin, until it felt like pressure beneath his ribs. Her gowns hung beside his coats now. Her books lined the shelves. Her presence threaded through every corner of a room that had never been shared. Wyatt stood near the tall windows, sleeves rolled, shoulders taut. The sight of her things here, their things, pressed against his control like a bruise that wouldn't fade. The door opened. Joselyn stepped in, movements brisk, shoulders squared in quiet challenge. Her gaze swept the room once, pausing on the bed that now bore her touch. Wyatt turned toward her, the motion sharp. Today wasn't good enough. Her eyes snapped to him. Good enough for who? The Chancellor? Or you? For the evaluation, he shot back, voice low, clipped. Alaric saw every crack, every hesitation. He's judging me with every breath we take. Her voice lashed back. Then maybe he judged the moment you cut me down in front of children. You think that showed strength? You humiliated me. Wyatt stilled, jaw tightening, a muscle jumping near his temple. Joselyn's fury sharpened. You made me small in front of your beta, your gamma, the Chancellor himself. A pause. Do you know what unity looks like, Wyatt? Because it isn't you silencing me. He moved closer. The air between them tightened. Do you have any idea what you cost me today? Cost you? Her tone sharpened, defiant. You think this is about you? Alaric doesn't see us, Wyatt said. He sees me. And every time you push back, it looks like I can't even command my own mate. Her laugh was jagged, cutting. And what do you think Alaric saw when your own Luna stood diminished at your side? A pause. Because I promise you, it wasn't strength. And when that Omega spoke about your things being moved, Wyatt continued, Alaric was listening. Every slip feeds his judgment. She only said what we both know, Joselyn shot back. I don't want to be in this suite. I'm assigned to it for the performance. Wyatt's hands flexed once, then he closed the distance, stopping just short of her. His voice dropped. Rough. Dangerous. You think I wanted this? You in my space. Your scent in my head every time I breathe. Joselyn's laugh cut sharp. Then maybe you should learn to breathe without trying to own the air. He leaned closer. Gold flared in his eyes. You think you'd rather be alone? Try sleeping next to a woman who looks at you like a stranger. Her reply came quiet, quick, lethal, then stopped making it so easy. The silence that followed was the loudest sound in the room, thick, airless, final. Joselyn turned, her gaze leveled like a blade. You want obedience? Find another Luna to bow for you. The door shut behind her. The echo bit through the suite. Havoc stirred. A low, restless growl pressed behind Wyatt's ribs, half pain, half protest. Wyatt stood motionless, breath tight. Her scent burned in his lungs, like a brand he couldn't shake. Chapter 11. The afternoon light stretched across the office, warm and sharp, catching the edges of glass and polished wood. Everything in the room smelled faintly of cedar and ink, Bloodmoon scent of order. A knock sounded. Enter, Wyatt said evenly. Sebastian stepped in first, presence steady, suit immaculate, tone professional but never stiff. Alpha Ron. Luna Mirren, he announced, opening the door wider. Welcome to Bloodmoon. Ron entered with a practiced smile, broad-shouldered, silver at the temples. A wolf who carried his authority like well-worn armor. His Luna followed, grace in motion, every line deliberate. Mirren's composure was the kind that came from experience. Her stillness drew attention more than movement ever could. Wyatt rose. Alpha Rain. It's been some time, not long enough for Bloodmoon stories to quiet. Rain replied, shaking his hand with easy humor. It's an honor. Joselyn stood as well, a soft smile touching her lips. Luna Mirren, it's lovely to finally meet you in person. Mirren's eyes warmed, faint crow's feet softening at the corners. The honor is mine, Luna Joselyn. I've heard of your work with the Omega Schooling Initiative. It's impressive. You're kind, Joselyn said, gesturing toward the chairs. Please sit. Wyatt gave a brief nod. Sebastian inclined his head and stepped out, closing the door softly behind him. Wyatt began first, voice even, confident without edge. We've reviewed the framework for the Joint Ceremony and Protection Initiative. Bloodmoon can handle the hosting, security, and logistics. Ridgeback's experience with ceremony and guard coordination should make everything seamless. Rain leaned back slightly, hands folding across one knee. Efficient and clear, what we expect from Bloodmoon. Joselyn's voice came gently, carrying warmth. If I may, the ceremony is meant to celebrate unity, not oversight. It might serve both packs better if the Lunas coordinate the ceremonial flow. Symbolism matters as much as strength. Wyatt's eyes flicked toward her. The faintest edge tightened his jaw. Security remains the priority. The event will operate under Alpha Protocol first. Joselyn inclined her head, tone even. Of course, but security doesn't always create peace. The ceremony's heart is what does that. Wyatt's fingers tapped once against the table, then stilled. Joselyn, I'm aware of how a ceremony works, he said, voice clipped. There it was, that small crack. Jocelyn's tone sharpened. Are you? Because it doesn't sound like it. Rain offered an uneasy half-smile that never quite reached his eyes. Mirren's gaze darted between them, her hand brushing the edge of her teacup. Nervous, quiet. Wyatt's reply came tight, measured. We'll review the Luna proposals after the Alpha Council's approval. Jocelyn's voice stayed polite. But her words slid between them like glass. Of course. Then I'll wait for your permission to speak freely. The words landed, a blade wrapped in silk. Rain's gaze flicked to Mirren. Her polite smile faltered. The silence stretched a beat too long, before Mirren recovered with a gracious nod, stepping in to smooth what couldn't quite be unseen. "Both priorities have merit," she said gently. "If anyone can find balance, it's the two of you. Ridgeback will happily follow your lead." Wyatt inclined his head once, measured, appreciated. Rain's smile faltered, just enough to betray surprise. He cleared his throat softly. "Balance and order, never easy to hold, even for Bloodmoon. Something like that," Wyatt murmured, voice low. The conversation limped politely to its end. Rain offered his hand. Wyatt took it. Joselyn smiled at Mirren, gratitude and poise in one breath. The Ridgeback Luna returned it with warmth tinged by quiet relief, her shoulders easing as they stepped toward the door. Sebastian stepped back in as he opened it. "I'll see our guests to their escort," he said smoothly. His tone stayed light, courteous. Rain murmured thanks. Mirren's smile was polite, though it held a flicker of unease. When the door closed behind them, Sebastian lingered, reading the room. He took one look at Wyatt's expression, then at Jocelyn's stillness, and let out a slow breath. "I'll assume the discussion was productive." Wyatt's gaze slid up, quiet warning. Sebastian huffed a soft laugh. "Should I pour drinks?" Wyatt's look answered for him. "Right, pretending I didn't ask." Sebastian bowed his head, then left. For a few breaths, the office stayed utterly still. "Are you purposefully trying to ruin this for me?" Wyatt's voice came low, rough, tension finally breaking through restraint. Joselyn turned. Disbelief flashed, then settled into something sharper. "Ruin it? You think having an opinion is ruining it? In front of another alpha?" "Yes." His words cut, tight, hard. Her eyes found his, steady, unflinching. "Do you hear yourself? You care more about who's watching than what we're actually saying." Wyatt leaned forward, voice edged. "Because what we say in front of them matters. You made us look divided." Her reply came fast, precise. "We are divided, Wyatt, and pretending otherwise doesn't make us stronger. It just makes us liars." He drew a sharp breath, jaw locking. The silence hummed with everything they couldn't admit. "They'll tell the others," he said at last. "The council will hear it." "Then let them," she said quietly. Her voice didn't waver. "Maybe they'll finally see that Bloodmoon isn't the fortress it pretends to be." She straightened, the calm in her voice sharper than any raised tone. "This act is wearing thin, Wyatt. Don't mistake my restraint for agreement." She stood before he could answer. Her skirts brushed his leg as she passed. The faint trace of her scent, vanilla and wildflowers, followed her to the door. The latch clicked, soft, final. Wyatt stood alone, jaw locked. Havoc paced restless beneath his skin. Her scent lingered, vanilla and wildflowers, a reminder of what control was costing him. Frustration and something else, something he couldn't name, clawed at his chest, until the silence pressed in again. Chapter 12. The executives appeared on screen the moment the quarterly meeting began, their corporate polish a stark contrast to the duties of a Bloodmoon alpha. This was the part of leadership humans understood: profit, margins, negotiations. The wall monitors glowed with their faces, polished smiles, perfect lighting, the faint hum of screens filling the quiet. Wyatt sat behind his desk, posture relaxed, dark suit precise. Beyond the glass, Bloodmoon's ridges rolled out beneath the morning light. He was at ease here, the calm rhythm of commerce, the kind of power that required no claws. "Finalize the projections by Friday," he said, tone clipped but civil. "If the margins shift again, we walk." They nodded in unison, executives pretending not to be afraid of the man on the other side of the screen. Wyatt's gaze flicked, one taking notes, another tapping a pen. The latch clicked, no knock, uninvited, just the soft whisper of a door swinging open. The scent of parchment and cold rain crept closer, ancient, deliberate, and out of place in this modern space. "Tell Tokyo." Wyatt tensed at the intrusion but didn't falter. No deal if they changed terms. His jaw flexed. A low growl slipped from his chest before he could stop it. Quiet but unmistakable. One of the humans glanced up, frowning at the sound that didn't belong in any boardroom. "Mr. Bloodmoon, is everything all right?" "Just interference," Wyatt said smoothly, eyes never leaving the monitor. "Send the revised term sheet before end of day." He ended the call mid-reply. The screens went black, leaving only his reflection, and the figure standing behind him. "Efficient," said Alaric. His voice mild, every syllable edged in quiet amusement. He stepped farther in, eyes gliding over the monitors, the view, the clean lines of steel and glass. You handle humans well, he observed. Command without baring teeth. Unexpected, perhaps. Wyatt did his best to rein in his alpha aura, irritation threading through restraint. He rose, buttoning his suit jacket, each motion deliberate restraint. On my territory, Chancellor, he said evenly. You ask permission before crossing my threshold. Alaric's smile didn't reach his eyes. I'll remember that, when I visit as a guest. He gestured lightly toward the darkened screens. So civilized. Wyatt closed a portfolio with deliberate calm. Civility's easy. Bloodmoon Technologies keeps pace with the world. A faint hum from the monitors filled the silence. Static, low, like the growl neither man would voice. Alaric tilted his head, tone soft but edged. That pace can cost more than coin. When a wolf grows too fluent in the human tongue, he sometimes forgets who he is. The air tightened. Havoc rumbled low inside Wyatt's chest, felt more than heard. Alaric's eyes flicked toward the sound, faintly amused. Careful, Alpha. I'd hate for your investors to learn what hides under the suit. Wyatt swallowed irritation, the wolf pacing hot beneath his skin. State your purpose, Chancellor. Alaric folded his hands, composed as ever. The council elders will attend your Bloodmoon banquet. Wyatt's eyes narrowed. That's a private rite, not a spectacle. Then it will make an honest test. Alaric's gaze met his, calm cutting. Consider the celebration your first evaluation. The council prefers to see leadership where it breathes, among your people, beside your Luna. Wyatt's composure thinned, for the first time. This is without notice? Alaric's smile was faint, satisfied. Consider this your notice. He turned, robes whispering softly as he crossed to the door. Unity is best revealed when a wolf believes no one is watching. Wyatt's voice dropped, low, dangerous. And what will you be watching for? Alaric paused at the threshold. The scent of rain deepened in the air. For cracks, he said simply. The wise ones hide theirs before the council sees. The door closed quietly behind him. Silence filled the office, only the echo of that single word, cracks. Wyatt's hand flexed once on the desk, then stilled. His reflection in the black glass looked back at him, suit pressed, jaw tight, gold flickering faint at the edges of his eyes. He and Joselyn would have to be aligned now, picture perfect, at least in appearance. Havoc's voice rippled through him, low and certain. He wanted you to slip. Wyatt exhaled through his nose, slow, steady. He almost got it. Chapter 13. The Bloodmoon banquet hall erupted in firelight and sound as the Alpha and Luna entered. Conversation faltered, then rose again. Bows, applause, the scrape of chairs, the murmur of greetings. Wolves filled the long tables. Warriors in polished uniforms, visiting Alphas in fine suits, their Lunas and retinues close behind. Wyatt's hand pressed at the small of Jocelyn's back as they walked the length of the hall, steady, unyielding. To most, it was an Alpha's natural claim. To Helena, watching from the dais, it was something else entirely. Alaric sat at the center, gold runes glinting along his robe, eyes sharp as flame contained in glass. The Chancellor's attention was a weight on the room. Every flick of his gaze a reminder that this night was a test. Along the lower rows, other Alphas and their seconds watched with quiet attention, subtle deference in every nod. Conversation dulled near the dais, the hierarchy of command pulsing like a living thing beneath the chandeliers. Stefan had a goblet in hand, his mate at his side, his laughter breaking warm and low as she teased him. Sebastian leaned in, murmuring something that drew a quick laugh from the dark-eyed she-wolf at his side. It was his gift, effortless, the beta charm that made she-wolves lean closer without thinking. As the meal unfolded, Joselyn did what she had always done best. She worked the crowd. She leaned toward an Omega, pouring wine, murmuring thanks with a smile that eased the girl's nerves. She listened intently as a visiting Alpha's mate described their pack schooling, her replies gracious, poised. When two neighboring Alphas bantered about winter supplies, Joselyn laughed lightly and offered a suggestion that turned competition into camaraderie. Laughter bloomed where she passed. Even the musician's tempo seemed to brighten, servers pausing mid-stride to catch the warmth in her tone. Wolves around her softened, drawn into her orbit. Even Alaric's gaze lingered once, quiet recognition in the way she held the room. Wyatt saw it all, and saw too how the unmated Alphas angled closer, brushing sleeves in jest, leaning just enough when speaking to her. His jaw ticked each time. He answered Ironfang's probing question about border patrols with clip precision, but his eyes followed Joselyn as if tethered. Havoc paced beneath his skin, restless. Helena caught it, the faint edge in Wyatt's aura that hadn't been there before. When the musician struck, the first notes of the evening, Frostfang's Alpha rose from his seat among the guests and crossed to the head table. The hum of talk fell to near silence. Forks stilled. The crowd turned in instinctive acknowledgement. Dozens of gazes followed Frostfang's path as he cut across the marble floor toward the alpha pair. He bowed deeply before Joselyn, old-world deference that drew approving murmurs from the hall. "Luna," he said, voice smooth, "may I claim a single dance?" His eyes flicked up to Wyatt. "With your permission, Alpha Wyatt." Wyatt inclined his head once, controlled. Joselyn placed her hand lightly in Frostfang's and allowed herself to be led to the floor. Applause followed them, then gave way to music. Frostfang moved with practiced ease, his steps polished, his attention fixed on her. Joselyn's smile came easily, her laughter quick when he spun her once in time with the violins. She looked free, enjoying herself. Around them, wolves leaned forward, smiling at the rare sight of their Luna laughing so freely. A few visiting alphas exchanged approving nods. The music swelled to match the lift of her skirt and the spin of her joy. Wyatt's hand tightened around his goblet. His gaze never left them. Havoc rumbled low, pressing hard against his ribs. From the dais, Michael's fingers traced the rim of his goblet in slow, idle circles. His gaze lingered on Joselyn, on the easy sway of her gown, the shimmer of silk against skin, with the quiet appreciation of a man who knew precisely what he wanted, and had already begun imagining how to take it. His smile was faint, indulgent, the picture of composure, but the hunger beneath it was unmistakable. Michael leaned just slightly toward Wyatt, his tone smooth as the wine in his glass. "Your Luna seems to be enjoying herself. Perhaps she finds the Frostfang halls lighter than Bloodmoon's walls." Wyatt's stare cut to him, gold sparking faintly at the edges of his vision. Joselyn laughed again on the floor. It landed like a spark on dry tinder. The music ended with a flourish. Frostfang bowed deeply once more, releasing Joselyn's hand. The hall clapped, approving. Wyatt was already rising. He crossed to her with unhurried certainty, claiming her hand before anyone else dared step forward. His palm slid to her back again, guiding her close, firm, possessive, a touch that brooked no refusal. This dance was slower, heavier with presence. The circle around them tightened, not in tension, but in reverence, every gaze drawn to the Alpha and Luna moving as one. To the watching hall it looked like devotion made visible, an unbreakable bond in motion. Wyatt's shoulders moved with quiet power beneath his black jacket, the faint gold of his eyes catching each turn. Joselyn's gown, pale silk shimmering like moonlight, brushed his legs. Her hair was a gleam of dark fire against the silver light. His hold was steady. His hand spanned the small of her back. His thumb brushed the line of her waist with each turn. He bent close once, drawing in her scent, and the faintest shiver went through her before she masked it with composure. The space between them grew smaller with every step. His breath traced her ear. Her pulse quickened under his touch. Each slow pivot carried quiet tension, balanced between restraint and something that burned too close. "You're putting on quite the show," Joselyn murmured finally, voice low enough for only him. Wyatt's reply was quiet steel. "Who says it's a show?" Her breath caught. She didn't answer, not when his hand pressed her closer, not when his cheek brushed hers in the turn. When the song ended, Wyatt didn't let her go. He bent and kissed her, firm, deliberate, lingering just shy of claiming. The hall stilled, silence, weighted with meaning. A ripple of low surprise coursed through the tables, half laughter, half admiration. Some wolves smiled, murmuring blessings for such open affection. Others traded knowing looks, the kind reserved for a mated pair unafraid to blur formality's edge. When he drew back, his hand remained on her back, anchoring her there. Joselyn's lips parted faintly before she schooled them back into a smile. Wyatt's hand lingered at the small of her back, light catching the gold flecks in his eyes. Joselyn's lips, still parted, curved into the practiced grace of a Luna reclaiming composure beneath the weight of 100 watching eyes. The room resumed its hum. Alphas turned to their companions. Conversation sparked again, though more than a few eyes lingered. From the dais, Michael lifted his goblet, expression smooth, voice carrying just enough. "To Bloodmoon, may strength hide its cracks well enough to convince even the keenest eyes." Some laughed politely. Others nodded, thinking it harmless jest. Only Wyatt and Joselyn felt the blade beneath the words. Michael's smile sharpened into something brittle. Alaric's face gave nothing, but his gaze had weighed every detail, and the faintest twitch at his jaw betrayed that he'd seen more than most. The performance had been flawless. The fracture had not gone unseen. Chapter 14. The banquet's music still hummed faintly through the stone corridors when Joselyn pushed through the alpha chamber doors. Her pulse hadn't steadied since the floor, since Wyatt's hand had gripped her waist too firmly, since his mouth had found hers before half the hall. She spun on him the moment the door latched. What the hell was that? Wyatt closed it fully with deliberate quiet. His jacket was unbuttoned, his shoulders coiled tight beneath the white shirt. Havoc prowled just behind his eyes. "You let Frostfang put his hands on you," he said, voice a blade in its sheath. Joselyn's laugh was sharp. It was a dance, Wyatt. Formal, polite. You agreed. His gaze didn't waver. "And you looked like you enjoyed it." Her spine stiffened, shoulders straight. The pearl-strung neckline of her gown caught the firelight when she lifted her chin. "So what if I did?" she said. "Isn't that what you wanted? A Luna who smiles and plays nice?" She stepped closer. Fire sparked in her eyes. "What I didn't agree to was you grabbing me like you were—" Her breath hitched. "Claiming me." Wyatt's jaw flexed harder, a muscle ticking beneath his cheeks. He moved forward, closed the distance, until her back brushed the carved table. His hands braced the edge on either side of her. Veins stood out across his forearms, trapping her without touching. "I don't claim what is mine," he said low, "but I won't watch another alpha scent you like prey." Her throat worked. Words faltered for a moment. His nearness carried heat, the faint burn of cedar and storm. For a dizzy instant she thought she felt a stir of heat in her chest. "You're possessive," she whispered, almost to herself. "I'm the alpha." His voice dropped, rough with control, "and I don't share." Her chest rose and fell, too quick. The bodice of her gown strained with each breath. "This isn't protection, Wyatt. It's a show, a beat, 30 more days of pretending, nothing more." But her voice lacked the blade it should. "I've carried," because she remembered his hand steadying her on the floor, the way his palm had spread over the small of her back, like it belonged there. He leaned in, close enough that the edge of his scent wrapped around her again. "Then tell me you felt nothing when I kissed you." Her lips parted, no words, only heat, only confusion. She shoved past him, her breath caught as she reached the door. "I don't even recognize you right now," she snapped, though her voice trembled at the edges. Havoc growled low. The door closed behind her. Wyatt stood frozen. Her scent lingered. Wildflowers, heat, defiance. He should have felt relief. This was almost over. Instead, only the pull remained, the taste of want he shouldn't feel. He crushed it down, jaw tight. But the heat refused to die, and that frightened him more than her leaving ever could. Chapter 15. The midday sun blazed over the Bloodmoon training grounds, heat shimmering against packed earth. Warriors ringed the arena, anticipation humming like live current. At the center dais, Chancellor Alaric stood tall, presence cutting the air like a drawn blade. "Discipline," he declared, voice carrying the weight of judgment. "Control of the wolf, command of the man. Show me Alpha Wyatt." Wyatt stepped into the ring, bare chest gleaming with sweat, stance coiled steel. Havoc pressed against his skin like a shadow straining for freedom. Opposite him, Stefan grinned, gamma confidence bright as the sun. They'd grown up side by side, trained together, fought together. But this morning neither would hold back. They collided hard. Stefan struck fast. Wyatt absorbed and countered. Block, twist, brutal precision. Dust rose around them, each impact sharp as breath. Wyatt caught him clean, pinned him tight. "Yield," he said. Breathless, Stefan nodded. "No shame in losing to my alpha." Wyatt released him. Havoc prowled restless beneath his skin. Alaric's voice rang out. "Expected." The gamma yields. Michael moved forward from the line, smooth, calculated. Gray eyes glinted like knives, his smile promising trouble. The boy Joselyn once knew was gone. The alpha stepping forward carried only hunger in his gaze. Then test him against one who does not. A ripple ran through the circle. Wolves bristled. Instincts pulled taut. Visiting alphas straightened, waiting to see if Bloodmoon would fracture. Alaric's brows lifted. "You would spar him yourself?" Michael bowed mockingly. "If the Chancellor permits. Alpha against alpha is the truest measure of discipline." Wyatt's jaw locked. Havoc surged hot inside him. "I accept." Michael stripped his shirt, scars pale against his chest. Two alphas stepped into the ring, and the crowd seemed to hold its breath. Even the earth felt waiting. They collided with a crack of force. Dust exploded upward. The ground shuddered. Wolves around them growled low, instincts bristling. Wyatt struck hard, brutal, precise. Michael countered dirty, hooks low, knees sharp, every move meant to destabilize. Michael's wolf, KL, snarled viciously, goading Havoc to rise and take control from the man. Wyatt caught him in a crushing hold, slammed him down. Havoc roared to break free. "Yield," Wyatt commanded, voice rough with the wolf. Michael grinned through blood. You're losing the leash? He twisted, rolled free, sprang up, eyes silver bright. They circled, measured, predatory. Michael struck first. Wyatt slipped right and drove a kick into his ribs. The crack echoed across the ring. Michael staggered, swept Wyatt's legs, dropping him. Wyatt rebounded fast, caught Michael's misstep, used his momentum to slam him down again, pinning him. Michael's voice slid low, taunting. My mark would look beautiful on her neck. Havoc surged, feral, straining beneath Wyatt's skin. Canines lengthened. Her scent hit, vanilla and wildflowers, sharp as steel. Havoc snarled, then stilled. Beneath her tether the man held control. Wyatt applied deadly pressure, his voice guttural, lethal. Yield. Go on, Michael rasped, blood slicking his teeth. Let the wolf take control. Pressure heightened. Enough. Alaric's command struck like thunder, reverberating through marrow. Even Havoc's growl buckled, forced back by the Chancellor's will. Wyatt shoved off Michael and rose, chest slick with sweat, gold still flickering in his eyes. Havoc paced hot beneath his skin, snarling for more. At the circle's edge, Joselyn stood motionless, her gaze locked on his. Then she turned and walked away, without a flicker of expression, as if he were no one at all. Michael stood slower, wiped blood from his mouth, smirk razor-sharp. He leaned in just enough that only Wyatt and Alaric, watching too closely, caught his words. Some alpha. Can't even leash your own wolf without her. Wyatt's reply cut low. Lethal. Careful, Michael. Envy makes your teeth show, and you're not the one she bears her throat to. The ring stayed silent, not in awe but in calculation. Chapter 16. Michael's guest chambers burned with lamplight. Shadows pooled heavy across the carved beams. He stood at the window, bourbon in hand, broad shoulders rigid beneath the bruises that marked him. The door opened, without a knock. Ariel slipped inside, copper hair gleaming, shawl whispering from her shoulders. Her eyes caught the cut at his mouth, the bruises along his ribs. Her smile curved. Like a knife. Why, it didn't leave you untouched, I see. Michael turned. The lamplight carved his profile into a blade. Pain fades, he said. Watching him fray, that was the point. He took a slow sip. Eyes hard. Now we press harder. The Chancellor will see the cracks. The Council will see the performance. And when it breaks, I'll be their solution. And take the Luna that should have been mine. Ariel crossed the rug, heels soft, daring to lift her gaze to meet his height. Her nails skimmed his arm. Deliberate, possessive. The air tautened. Michael didn't move. Joselyn is nothing but a placeholder, Ariel said smoothly. Remove her, and the crown falls where it always should have. To me. Michael's mouth curved, but his eyes stayed hard. Then tempt him, he said. Break them. Every word precise, every touch, every whisper drive her further from his side. Ariel's smile sharpened. Satisfaction sparked in her gaze. Even alphas can be tempted. I'll remind him what a real Luna looks like. Her tone dipped darker, teasing. And if temptation isn't enough, a pause. There are other ways to make her stumble. Michael stepped closer, his shadow folded over hers. His voice dropped, quiet, lethal. You want a throne. I want the alpha to crumble and the Luna to stumble. Then let the Council decide who's fit to lead. His gaze pinned her. I'll be waiting. The air thickened, dominance pressing down. For the briefest beat, Ariel's smile faltered. Then she polished it smooth again. She slipped past him, shawl trailing like smoke, leaving with her plan. Sharpened. Michael stayed in the lamplight a moment longer, then reached for the decanter, refilled his glass. The next move was already forming. And this time, he intended to enjoy the fall. Chapter 17. Wyatt's office reeked of leather, smoke, and restraint barely holding. Wyatt stood behind his desk, sleeves rolled, contracts open but forgotten. The ink swam before his eyes. He'd been reading the same line for 10 minutes. Since the Chancellor's arrival, focus had become a luxury he didn't have. The door opened, without permission. He didn't need scent to know. The air shifted first, sugar and smoke, a ghost from another life. Ariel. His voice was low, clipped. Command, not greeting. He didn't look up. State your business. She glided in like she owned the floor, copper hair spilling down bare shoulders, the click of her heels deliberate. So formal now, she purred. You used to sound different when you said my name. You used to know your place. His gaze lifted, flat, gold at the edges. Speak, or get out. Clock's ticking, Wyatt. When that paper bond burns out, you'll finally be free of your silent Luna. She stepped closer. You'll need me, the one who can actually answer your wolf when he calls. Her smile sharpened, because we both know she never could. The snarl that rolled through Wyatt's chest wasn't human. Havoc's gold flashed in his eyes, the sound low enough to vibrate the desk. He stepped out from behind it, towering over her. His alpha aura filled the room. "Choose your next words wisely," he said, voice thick with warning. "You feel it, don't you?" Ariel pressed. "That silence beside you. The way she lies there, cold, empty, useless." She smiled. "The great Bloodmoon Alpha shackled to a Luna who can't even rouse a wolf. You could have had fire, Wyatt. You could have had me." The air dropped 10 degrees. Even Havoc went still. "Did I touch a nerve?" She smirked. Wyatt's hand shot out. His fist caught the fabric of her shawl. He yanked her forward, not enough to bruise, but dominance flooded the room. "You're done here." The door opened behind them. Wyatt released her instantly, dismissing her like something beneath him. Joselyn stood in the doorway, her eyes cut to the closeness between them, to the mingled scent in the air. "Joselyn." His voice came rough. Her glare could have split stone. The mask on her face didn't crack. Ariel's smile turned slow, poisonous. "Timing, Luna," she said sweetly. "Always your weakness." She bowed her head in mock respect, then swept out. The door closed with a whisper that hit like thunder. Silence followed. It wasn't what it looked like, Wyatt snapped. Hard, fast. Jocelyn's laugh was brittle. "Really? Because it looked like two old lovers finding their rhythm." She walked in, he bit out. "And yet your door wasn't locked," she shot back. "Maybe because you didn't want it to be." The sound that answered wasn't words. It was Havoc's growl, low, lethal. Wyatt stopped a breath away from her. Heat radiated off his skin. The scent of cedar and storm flooded the air. "You are my Luna," he said, voice rough with power. No one stands where you stand." Her tone was cool, lethal. "If that's true," she said, "you wouldn't need to say it." Neither of them moved. The room felt too small for both their fury. Wyatt's jaw flexed hard enough to ache. "You think I'd ever choose her over you?" Her eyes narrowed. "You already did the moment you let her walk through that door." She turned, skirts whispering against stone. The door shut, quiet, final. Wyatt gripped the desk. Wood bit into his palms. Her scent still clung. Wildflowers and fury. He exhaled once, hard. He wasn't supposed to care this much. Chapter 18. In the strategy room, border maps glowed with red markers and the hum of tracking monitors filled the air. Reports lined the table beside cold mugs and the lingering scent of smoke and cedar, a battlefield dressed in ink and data. Wyatt stood at the head, sleeves rolled, eyes fixed on the river crossing pulsing on the central screen. His jaw worked once, a silent verdict forming before anyone spoke. "Shift the western patrols at dawn," he said, voice even, deliberate. "They favor shadows before the sun lifts. If they test the line, they'll find no weakness there." Elias, the scar-lined war chief, studied the map. "And if they come at dusk instead, when shadows cut longer?" Wyatt didn't hesitate. "Then the eastern flank collapses in on itself. We drive them into the river where their footing fails. Bloodmoon fights on ground it chooses, not the enemy." The door opened with a muted scrape. A neutral enforcer entered, armor dulled but intact. He bowed low, eyes fixed on the floor. "Alpha Wyatt. A rogue was seized near the river crossing at dusk. He's contained at the annex." Wyatt's head snapped up. Gold flared at the rim of his eyes. "At dusk?" His voice hit like a blade. "And I'm hearing about it just now?" Power rolled through the room, heavy. The enforcer swallowed hard. "By protocol, the Chancellor was informed first," he stammered. "He only just gave permission to notify you." Wyatt took a step forward, every motion deliberate. "Dangerous. Alaric is not the Bloodmoon Alpha." Each word struck like a hammer. "I am. And Bloodmoon doesn't answer to protocol. It answers to me." The air tightened, pressing into every breath. No one dared move. "Take me to him, now." He was already moving, stride hard, unrelenting. The heat of his anger chased ahead of him down the corridor. His boots struck like a drumbeat, warning of the storm that followed. The annex hit him before he crossed the threshold. Feral rot, blood, the acrid tang of silver. Burning flesh. The stench clawed at his throat. He shoved the door wide. Torches spat against carved runes. Shadows jumped along the stone walls. The rogue hung shackled in the center, wrists raw in silver cuffs. Wyatt moved toward him. Every line of him coiled steel. His voice dropped, low, merciless. "You stand on Bloodmoon ground. That means your life is mine to take." A pause. "Speak, or I'll let you live long enough to tell me who sent you." With every bone broken, the rogue spat blood at the floor. Laughed. Hoarse. The door scraped again. Joselyn stepped inside. The prisoner's gaze snapped past Wyatt to her. His grin split wider, red-stained teeth gleaming in the torchlight. "She bled once already," he rasped. "She'll bleed again." A pause. A Luna with no wolf. His smile twisted, silence that begs to be broken. Wyatt turned, not to look at her, to shield her. Havoc slammed against his ribs. Claws dragged at his skin. The growl that left him shook the torches. Who sent you? Not a question. An order sharpened into threat. The rogue wheezed, lips curling too close to a smile. You already feel him circling, the one who wants what you pretend to guard. The name was never spoken. It didn't have to be. Wyatt's hand shot out. Claws grazed flesh. Chains rattled as the prisoner fought for breath. His laugh shredded. Wet. Kill me, Alpha, the rogue rasped. Show them all what you are. Havoc roared inside him. Blood, teeth, the need to end. Wyatt's claws dug deeper. The air crackled. Heat rolled off him in waves. Enough. Alaric's voice broke across the chamber. Like thunder. His hand clamped down on Wyatt's shoulder. Iron, anchoring him back. Wyatt tore free, breath ragged, gold still burning at the edges of his eyes. Blood streaked his palm. The rogue coughed a laugh, thin, ragged. Keep her close, Alpha, he rasped. Without her you'll drown in your own teeth. Alaric's gaze lingered on Wyatt, unreadable. Then, softly, as if naming fate, this will serve as your judgment trial. The words hit, but the rage stayed, banked, not gone. Control wasn't victory, it was survival. Chapter 19. The walk back from the annex was tense, the night air thick with rogue and silver. The corridor swallowed each step. Their footfalls rang loud against the quiet. Joselyn moved fast, skirts brushing stone, not sparing him a glance. Joselyn. His voice cut across the corridor, commanding, edged with havoc. She stopped, spine straight, shoulders squared. You've been avoiding me since last night, Wyatt said, voice low, threaded with havoc's edge. She turned. Her laugh was soft, bitter. Avoiding? No, I'm finished pretending. He closed the distance, stride sharp, presence pressing down, until the air itself tightened around her. Gold sparked in his eyes. Havoc prowled restless beneath his skin. You think you know what you saw, he said. You don't. Her Luna mask was flawless. I don't need the details. 30 days, and this charade ends. Havoc whined at her words. Claws pressed beneath his skin, a sound that cut straight through his chest. Wyatt's aura surged sharper. You're not walking away, not while danger circles. She met his eyes, unflinching. Danger found me because of you, for a heartbeat. Guilt flickered across his face, gone too fast to hold. Wyatt forced the reply through his teeth. You're mine to protect, her breath caught. But she held steady. Protection isn't possession, and I am not yours. His jaw locked. Until the danger is ended, you don't set 1 foot beyond Bloodmoon walls. She pivoted, spine unbent. Save your orders for the woman who welcomes them. Her heels struck sharp against stone, flawless, final, as she strode away. Only when the corner swallowed her did her shoulders dip. A shaky breath escaped into the quiet. Wyatt stood in the corridor, fists clenched. Havoc snarled inside him. Ours. He ground his teeth against the word, but the denial rang hollow, because the instinct hadn't come from the wolf alone. Chapter 20. The annex chamber was suffocating with heat and tension. This was the judgment trial, when the council would measure Bloodmoon's strength not in battle, but in mercy. Torches hissed against stone, their light striking sparks off iron runes carved deep in the walls. Warriors pressed close along the edges, every breath caught. Visiting alphas stood among them, sharp-eyed, watching, weighing. The rogue knelt shackled in silver at the center, wrists blistered and raw, his grin a smear of blood and defiance. Alaric stepped forward onto the dais, robes whispering across stone. His voice cut the silence, calm, carrying like a verdict. Judgment is the truest mirror of an alpha, not in victory nor in bloodshed, but in the choice of what to do when both lie within his grasp. Wyatt entered in full alpha dress, black jacket sharp over broad shoulders, the crest of Bloodmoon gleaming at his chest. He moved with a predator's stillness, each step deliberate, command rolling off him like pressure in the air. Joselyn took her place at his side, her composure flawless, though the rogue's gaze lingered on her like a knife. Wyatt stopped before the prisoner. His gaze was stone. You trespassed. You spilled Bloodmoon blood. You threatened my Luna. His voice dropped, low, lethal. For that you forfeit your life. The rogue spat blood at the floor, chuckling hoarse. Then end it, Alpha. Let them see how safe your Luna truly isn't. The crowd held its breath. Havoc surged, claws raking beneath Wyatt's skin. Gold flooded his vision. The warrior beside him flinched as Wyatt tore the silver blade from the man's belt. Firelight slid along the edge, cold, burning against his palm. Wyatt pressed the blade to the rogue's neck. The air hissed where silver met flesh. The rogue's grin widened, breath catching on a laugh. Do it. Chains rattled once, then Silence. Every eye fixed on the blade, on the line of blood that hadn't yet fallen. For a heartbeat, Wyatt leaned closer. Then he turned the blade, slow, deliberate, sliding it home with a sharp metallic click. When he spoke, his voice carried, measured, final. Death would be mercy. Mercy you don't deserve. The rogue's grin faltered. You'll live, Wyatt declared, tone cutting through the chamber, long enough for every pack to see what happens to those who think Bloodmoon is prey. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd, half relief, half awe. The rogue strained against the cuffs, laughter breaking ragged. Chains won't hold forever, Alpha. Wyatt leaned in. Gold burned through his gaze. Then pray I'm not here when they break. The words slammed down like a verdict. From the dais, Alaric's gaze lingered, a beat too long, on Wyatt, then Joselyn. His voice carried, calm but edged, sealing the moment. Judgment is given. Bloodmoon has chosen strength over savagery. The chamber exhaled as one. Warriors struck fists to chests. The sound a thunderous vow. Wyatt remained still, gaze locked on the rogue, showing the council that mercy, when wielded by an alpha, was its own kind of weapon. Chapter 21. Lunch with the Chancellor was never just lunch. His invitation was phrased as courtesy, but left no room to decline. The lanai overlooked miles of rolling fields, sunlight gleaming off carved stone and vines heavy with bloom. Beneath the awning, a table stretched in polished perfection, silver kettles steaming beside platters of bread and fruit. Omegas moved through the light in quiet rhythm, their motions precise beneath the Chancellor's gaze. One young Omega faltered, cider sloshing over her wrist. Joselyn caught the pitcher before it tipped, her voice low and steady. Easy. There you go. A fleeting smile, small, but seen by every eye nearby. Wyatt entered late, still closing a deal from the human world. His voice was clipped as he spoke into the phone. Lock the deal. Have next quarter's projections ready by Monday. If anyone questions it, remind them I don't ask twice. Across the table, Chancellor Alaric watched them both, expression pleasant, eyes sharp. His fingers brushed the carved runes in the table's edge, a gesture both idle and deliberate. The unity test was acceptable, he began, voice smooth and cool. The banquet displayed command. The discipline trial, impressive. A pause, though your wolf pressed too near the edge. His gaze lingered on Wyatt. But now, a rogue captured near your border. He turned his attention to Joselyn. A Luna without her wolf is most exposed in such times. Joselyn met his look head on. My wolf may be silent, Chancellor, but that doesn't make me defenseless. I serve this pack in ways no claws or fangs could. Alaric's smile didn't shift, though the air cooled a degree. Balance is strength, Luna, and when balance falters, his eyes slid to Wyatt. When human business pulls an alpha late from his own table, cracks widen. A pause, deliberate. Danger always finds the gap. Wyatt's shoulders tightened, havoc paced beneath his skin. His reply came even. Steel under fire. My Luna's safety is never faltered. Not once. She is safe because she has me. That's what matters. Alaric inclined his head slightly, tone softening, words barbed. Strength is not only power, Alpha, it is control. Another pause, and when control slips, his gaze held Wyatt. It is the Luna who bleeds first. Silence followed, heavy as judgment. When the meeting adjourned, conversation scattered like dust. Joselyn slipped away through the hedges, the Chancellor's words circling in her mind. Sunlight filtered along the gravel path, throwing long shadows through the trimmed leaves. Joselyn, Michael's voice slid out, smooth, deliberate. He stepped from the hedge's shadow, silver-gray eyes fixed on her. His aura brushed the air. Calculated pressure. Your Alpha may carry the crown, he said softly, but even kings have blind spots. He moved closer. You walk unguarded through danger, and he doesn't see it. A pause. That should concern him. Another beat. It already concerns me. Her shoulders squared, spine straight as cut glass. I don't need your concern. Michael moved closer, close enough that the heat of his presence grazed her skin. If the council's watching, you should have someone watching you, he murmured. His gaze flicked briefly to her throat, then back to her eyes. Your Alpha doesn't see what stands in front of him. His voice lowered, silk edged with hunger. But I do. Jocelyn's pulse ticked faster, but her composure didn't crack. Her reply cut like ice. You confuse attention with power. You'll have neither from me. She turned before he could answer, skirts whispering against the gravel. Michael's smirk lingered in the dark, sharp and satisfied. The night carried it long after she was gone. and somewhere behind the courtesy, the hunt continued. Chapter 22. The next day, the packhouse training room breathed in measured sounds, gloves thudding into leather, the low hum of ventilation, steel resting quiet in its racks. Afternoon light slanted in narrow panes across the mats, striping the floor in gold. The air smelled faintly of chalk and iron, discipline made tangible. Joselyn moved through her drills without looking at the mirror. Jab, cross, pivot, knee, a clean series tight enough that the bag barely swung. Alaric's voice kept circling anyway, soft and clinical. A Luna without a wolf is most exposed. She set her jaw and drove a fist heel straight into the center seam. The bag bucked. She reset her stance, shoulders square, breath controlled. If claw and fang weren't coming, fine. She'd build other weapons. Flesh, bone, will. The door hissed open. Sebastian strolled in with a towel slung over his shoulder and a grin that came preloaded. "Stefan bailed on you, so lucky you get me," Sebastian quipped. He gestured at the heavy bag. Note to self, never volunteer for gamma duty again. His grin widened. "You've been upgraded to the beta himself." Upgraded. Joselyn took the towel he tossed and blotted her temple. "Bold talk for someone about to get schooled. Someone sounds confident. You sure you're ready for this beta steal?" "Wrong question." Joselyn's smile curved easy. "Are you ready for the Luna?" His grin sharpened, amused and unbothered. "All right then, Luna. Guess I'll make sure Stefan keeps me on rotation." She tried not to smile and failed. "How generous. A public service just for you." He kicked off his shoes, peeled his shirt, and tossed it across a bench, stretching with an exaggerated flourish that made his shoulders crack. The overhead lights caught on the thin scar along his ribs, old and faint. "You stretching or stalling?" She adjusted her gloves. "Afraid I'll bruise the beta?" "Not unless you're aiming high." He set his feet, arms up. "Show me." They started easy. Tap and check. A slow exchange that let him test her balance and let her find his rhythm. Sebastian corrected once. At her elbow, a light shift at her hip, and backed off immediately before the touch could be anything but instruction. "You've been practicing," he said, and this time there was no joke under it. "Some of us don't like being underestimated." She slid inside his guard and tapped his ribs with the edge of a glove. Clean. His grin jumped. "Duly noted, Luna." They let the pace climb. The room shrank to breath and footwork, to the steady thud of their movements and the muted slap of mats underfoot. When she landed a tidy hook that clicked against his forearm, she laughed, quick, surprised, the sound of tension breaking loose. The door opened again. Wyatt stepped inside and took in the sweat streak at Jocelyn's throat, Sebastian's grin, the nearness. Havoc bristled at the sight. Joselyn felt his aura first. The air cooled. She didn't look away immediately. She finished the exchange, then let her hands fall, breathing heavy. Wyatt's voice came steady, not raised. "You're dismissed, Beta." There was no censure in the title. There didn't need to be. Sebastian straightened and bowed, towel over his shoulder in one smooth motion. "Yes, Alpha." He pivoted toward Joselyn with a quick, easy half-smile meant to skim the tension. "Pleasure as always, Luna. Tell Stefan I want hazard pay next time." He was gone a heartbeat later, the door sealed with a soft click. Silence pressed in. Joselyn tightened her Velcro strap. "Was that necessary?" she asked. "Not sharp, just even." Wyatt crossed to the sparring mat, took his time with the hand wraps as if they were suddenly complex. "He has other duties." He tightened the last knot and slipped on his gloves. "You'll spar with me from now on." Her brows flicked, more curious than insulted. "You giving Stefan time off?" "You'll spar with me, it's better that way." He turned, gloves up. It wasn't challenge in his voice so much as conclusion. "And if I land a hit?" She bumped her gloves together once, a quiet challenge. "Then I'll stop holding back." They faced each other on the center line. No count, no tap of gloves, just movement. Wyatt set a pace that was precise without being cruel. He pressed angles that made her pivot sharper, reached across her guard with control that said he'd measured reach, and recoiled before he closed the first inch. When she overcommitted on a cross, he caught her wrist and redirected, not rough, teaching the line where strength ended and leverage began. "Find your center," he said low. "Don't offer it for free." She corrected, slid under his arm, and nearly got behind him. His hand found her hip for half a second to steady the balance she'd stolen from herself, then was gone. She landed a glancing touch at his ribs on the turn. "You're improving," he said. "You sound surprised." "Not anymore." They went again. The room faded to the scuff of bare feet and the dry rasp of wraps. She learned the pattern of his patience. How he gave space, then took it. How he let her see a gap just long enough to make her earn it. When the final exchange came, It did so almost gently. Her feint drew him across. His weight shifted. He stepped through it, arm closing at her waist before her heel could slip on the mat. Her back met his chest, only a breath between them. Heat, heartbeat, restraint. Joselyn steadied first, pulse fluttering in a way she refused to name. She moved forward, reclaiming the space between them. The Velcro hissed softly as she stripped the glove away. "That's enough for today." The words came softer than she meant them to. "I need to get ready for the festival. Tomorrow," he said. "Same time." His gaze held for a breath too long. Then he forced it away. She paused, one hand on the doorframe, eyes narrowing just a fraction, trying to read something she couldn't quite place, then slipped out. Wyatt's shoulders eased only after she was gone. Her scent lingered. Wildflowers, something warmer. And it bothered him that he noticed. Whatever this feeling was, it sat wrong in his chest. Unwelcome, unnamed, but impossible to ignore. Chapter 23. The Bloodmoon festival throbbed with drums and laughter, the scent of roasted meat and cider thick in the air. Firelight danced across linen banners snapping in the breeze. Wolves sparred in friendly bouts near the ring. Pups zigzagged between tables, sticky-fingered and fearless, shrieking with delight. Sebastian crouched by the sparring circle, a half-moon of pups wobbling before him. Guard high, feet firm, balance first, always balance. His grin was easy, warm, as he adjusted small elbows and turned tiny fists. When one boy overcommitted and pitched forward, Sebastian caught him by the scruff, ruffled his hair, and sent him back laughing. The pup's grin was all gap-toothed triumph. His mother dipped her head in thanks. This, Joselyn thought as she passed with a basket at her hip, was the pulse she loved most. Not spectacle, belonging. She scanned the groaning tables, pitchers thinning faster than they should, honey cookies already stripped clean by quick hands. She nodded to a young Omega. "Hold the line here. I'll restock the sweets." She slipped through the crowd toward the storeroom. Inside, the noise fell away into a padded hush. Shelves climbed the walls, stacked with jars and sacks, neat towers of bread and fruit. The air was cool. Flour, apples, cinnamon. She set her basket down and reached for a high tray. The door clicked shut behind her, too soft to startle, too deliberate to ignore. A voice slid through the quiet, honeyed and edged. "The pack feasts outside, and yet the Luna hides with the crumbs." Ariel stepped from the shadows between shelves, copper hair gleaming like flame, silk whispering against wood. Her smile was gentle, her eyes were not. Joselyn turned, steady. "You confuse silence for weakness." Ariel's laugh was low, dangerous, "and you confuse illusion for strength." Her gaze dragged slow and appraising. Wyatt used to admire bite. "What does he find in you now?" "Balance," Joselyn said. "Calm as stone. Balance breaks." Jocelyn's reply came clean and sharp. "Then be careful. It might break your neck." The stillness sharpened. For a heartbeat, Ariel simply studied her, lashes lowering and lifting again. Then her smile thinned. "We'll see how long that balance lasts." Her voice dipped, venom sweet. "Enjoy your feast, Luna. Some of us prefer the hunt." The door shut with a quiet snick. Perfume lingered, sweet turning cloying, cloying turning metallic. Joselyn exhaled slowly. Control returned first, then breath. The apple scent had soured in her mouth. She stacked the trays into her basket and stepped back into the light. The festival crashed in again. Music, laughter, smoke, and cider. She moved through it smoothly, nodding to greetings, setting the cookies down within reach of small hands. "One each," she told a circle of pups. Her voice landed exactly right, kind, amused, immovable. They scattered with victorious whoops. Across the green, Wyatt stood near the cider stand with a knot of elders, shoulders filling, his tunic, command radiating quiet heat. His gaze swept the crowd, because it always did. It found her. Gold edged his eyes, catching everything, the careful set of her shoulders, the smile that held a fraction too long. She was fine, clearly fine. The lie scraped, havoc stirred. Wyatt moved before he chose to. Joselyn kept arranging the trays as though nothing had tilted in that quiet room. She didn't look up until the heat of him pressed into her space, close enough to steal a breath. "Something happened," he said quietly. Supplies ran low. She slid a tray forward, aligning it with the cloth's pattern. "Joselyn." Low. A warning. Her eyes lifted, her smile held. "It's been handled." He studied her. Too long, too close, until the festival blurred to a distant hum. Predator patience, alpha restraint. At last he let it go, because he had to. Havoc did not. The wolf paced beneath his ribs, marking the air that no longer smelled like celebration, filing it away with patient certainty. Not now, but soon. Chapter 24. The garden lay hushed, the festival's laughter reduced to distant echoes beyond the hedges. Lanterns glowed low among the roses, their light catching dew on the petals like quiet stars. Joselyn sat alone on a stone bench, cloak drawn tight around her shoulders. The weight of the day pressed down on her chest, heavy and unyielding. She hadn't realized she was trembling until a warm cup was placed in her hands. "Tea," Helena said gently. "And another cloak. It's colder than it looks." Jocelyn's fingers curled around the porcelain, grateful for the heat. She tried to smile, but it faltered before it could take shape. "Her words won't leave me," she admitted softly. She said it like it was fact, that I don't belong here, that I'm hollow without a wolf. Her breath caught, sharper this time, and the worst part is, part of me believes her. Helena sat beside her, lavender and calm settling into the space. She drew Joselyn close, arm firm around her shoulders. "Ariel was raised to cut where it hurts most," Helena said quietly. "She doesn't speak truth, she speaks poison." Joselyn swallowed. "But what if the poison only works because there's already a wound?" She stared into the tea as if answers might surface there. "Wyatt treats me like I'm part of the display. A symbol, something temporary. 30 days, and it's over." The words tasted like ash. Helena didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice carried more weight. "You see performance," she said. "I see a man holding himself together by will alone. I see an alpha who nearly tore a hall apart when rogues struck, and who watched you at the banquet as if the rest of the world had ceased to exist." Jocelyn's throat tightened. "Do not mistake restraint for indifference," Helena continued. "The council will test him again and again, his authority, his control, his loyalty to the Alliance." She turned slightly, eyes sharp. "But you, Joselyn, you test his heart." Joselyn blinked fast, breath unsteady. Helena leaned in, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Do not let them convince you that you are lacking," Helena said firmly. "And do not let him, intentionally or not, make you feel smaller than you are. You are not a placeholder. You are the Luna." Warmth settled over Jocelyn's shoulders, heavier than the cloak. The tightness in her chest eased, not gone but steadied, like a storm pushed just far enough offshore to breathe again. Helena rose at last, smoothing the fabric of her skirts. "Rest," she said softly. "Let the pack see you whole. The rest will follow." But Helena knew her son would find none until he was reminded of what truly bound him. Wyatt's office reeked of ink and smoke, tension thick as iron. Reports sprawled across the desk, maps stabbed with markers where patrols had doubled. He sat hunched in the leather chair, sleeves rolled, one hand raking through his hair. The door creaked open without a knock. Helena stepped in, carrying a small plate of cookies, the scent of warm sugar following her like balm. "Cookies?" he asked, voice flat, more gravel than word. She set the plate down on the desk, ignoring his scowl. "Every alpha needs something sweet now and then. Used to steal these off the tray before they cooled." Wyatt huffed through his nose, not quite a laugh. "I don't have time for nostalgia." Helena moved to his side, brushing a hand over his hair the way she once had when he was a pup. "Mom," he said, a quiet laugh under the word. "Don't do that. I'm an alpha now." He hid a hint of a smile. Her eyes softened, but her tone stayed steady. "And even alphas need their mothers." She nodded toward the couch. "Come, sit with me a moment." Reluctantly he followed, sinking onto the cushion beside her. She studied him in silence until he finally spoke. "She looks at me like I'm the enemy. I protect her, keep order, and she still acts like I'm the reason she can't breathe." "You are the cage," Helena said gently. "And the key. She wears the Luna mask because she has to. You wear the Alpha mask because you think you must, but neither of you is looking at what's behind it. She doesn't want to be here. 30 more days and she's gone." Helena's lips curved in something like sorrow, something like pride. "And yet you don't want her to leave." Wyatt stilled. The denial rose to his lips, but it didn't pass them. Helena's hand brushed his cheek before she spoke. "The council will test your discipline, but Joselyn will test your heart. Restraint isn't indifference, Wyatt. Protection isn't all you feel. Stop hiding behind it before you lose her." She nudged the plate of cookies closer, kissed his temple, and left him in the quiet. Wyatt stayed seated, the weight of her words lodged heavy in his chest. For a long moment, he stared at the plate, jaw tight, the silence pressing. Then, slowly, he reached out and took a cookie. The sweetness hit his tongue, softening the iron in his chest, and for once he let himself sit still, not as Alpha, not as Cage, but as a man who did not want to let her go. At the back of his mind, havoc eased, curling down content with the thought of her staying. Chapter 25. The council called it a leadership inquiry, a civilized word for an ambush. They wanted to know if Bloodmoon's alpha was strong enough to stand above the rest. Instead, it became a battlefield of questions and knives, elders probing, Michael baiting, Joselyn's words cutting where they shouldn't have. By the end, it felt less like an inquiry and more like a trial by fire. Wyatt shoved the chamber doors open, the heavy wood resisting before giving under his hand. They slammed shut behind him like a verdict. The scent of old stone and judgment clung to his skin, thick, metallic, suffocating. The aftertaste of battle still burned beneath his ribs. He walked, shoulders squared, fury caged tight beneath his skin, alpha power bleeding through every step. Sebastian kept pace and stayed silent. He knew the storm brewing inside. Behind him, Michael's voice cut through the hall, silk hiding steel, each word honed to a blade. Conviction suits her, Michael said, voice edged like a knife. Loyalty to the pack before her alpha. Brave words in your own house. Wyatt didn't look back. Brave isn't the word. Gold flashed in his eyes, havoc pressing to the surface. Michael's laugh followed, quick and biting. Whatever helps you sleep, Alpha Wyatt. The weight of the chamber still clung to the air like a living thing. Sebastian exhaled, tone mildly cautious. Could have gone worse. Some of them probably heard devotion, not division. Wyatt's jaw flexed. Sebastian, nothing about what she said sounded like devotion. Sebastian hesitated. Still, Bloodmoon came across strong. They saw your leadership, your record. Wyatt's gaze was molten gold now. She said, "A Luna serves the pack before she serves her alpha." Tell me what part of that sounds unified. It makes me look like I can't lead my own Luna. Sebastian nodded slowly, hands slipping into his pockets. I'll admit it landed wrong, but she didn't mean it as a cut. Wyatt's voice sharpened. She gave them the blade, and she hadn't even realized she'd cut him first. Sebastian tried for levity that didn't quite land. If it helps, you didn't look divided. You looked like an alpha about to put a fist through the table, but definitely unified. Wyatt shot him a look. The humor faded from Sebastian's face. She stands with you. Everyone sees it, he said quietly. Wyatt's reply was a low rumble, more thought than sound. Everyone but her. He turned toward the far end of the hall, fury contained, each movement deliberate. She wanted to remind them who she serves, he said. I'll remind her who she stands beside, Sebastian muttered after him, dry but earnest. Try not to turn that reminder into a declaration of war. Wyatt didn't answer. His footsteps struck the marble, steady, sharp, each one echoing like a countdown before the break. Chapter 26. Wyatt stormed into the Alpha Suite, the door slamming behind him. The council's scrutiny clung to his skin like ash, every word, every glance at her burning hotter than the fire in the hearth. Joselyn stood before the mirror, fastening a bracelet with careful precision, poised, polished, only her eyes betrayed the fracture he'd seen them feed on. Wyatt's voice cut across the room, low and edged raw. You bled doubt into that room. Joselyn didn't turn. I answered truthfully. That's what they asked for. They asked for unity. He moved closer, each step deliberate, the weight of his presence crowding the space between them. And instead, they saw division. She pivoted, eyes steady on his. Maybe they saw what's real. You don't want me, Wyatt. You want a Luna-shaped shield to hold up for the council. His jaw tightened, gold flickering at the edges of his gaze. You think I don't want you? The words came rougher than he intended, almost raw. Her laugh was sharp. Want? You don't even know what that means when it comes to me. All you've ever cared about is the show. A lie dressed up as safety. Wyatt stepped closer, closing the last inches between them. Her back brushed the edge of the vanity as his hand braced on the wood beside her, heat pouring off him, havoc restless beneath his skin. Not everything I fight for is politics. Her breath caught, and the question slipped out before she could stop it. Then what, Wyatt? Why act like it matters when you've made it clear it doesn't? Havoc surged, urging him to close the distance between them, eyes flashing gold before Wyatt forced him back. She turned and moved past him, skirts brushing the stone floor as she went for the door. We'll be late, and the council will expect their performance. Wyatt didn't move. The words clawed for release, but none found shape. The silence burned hotter than any fight. When he turned, she was gone. His breath left him rough, want and anger, the same fire. Chapter 27. Michael's guest chambers were quiet, lamplight settling over dark wood and sharper intentions. He stood before the mirror, tall frame reflected in the glass, adjusting his tie with calm precision. His movements were deliberate, controlled, the dark suit stretched across broad shoulders that radiated quiet command. The door clicked shut behind Ariel. She crossed the chamber without hurry, copper hair gleaming in the lamplight, her gown cut to draw the eye. One hand brushed the back of a chair as she passed, unhurried, calculated. You should have seen Jocelyn's face when she walked in, Ariel said, satisfaction curling her smile. She didn't need proof to imagine the rest. Perfection always fractures so beautifully. Michael adjusted his cufflink, gaze still on his reflection. And at the festival, he said evenly, you press just the right nerve. She wears her emotions too close to the surface. Ariel perched on the arm of a chair, crossing one leg over the other with languid grace. Her insecurities cling worse than silk in the rain. Anyone with eyes can see where she frays. Michael's eyes narrowed in the mirror, silver catching the light. I stopped her in the corridor. She listened, as always. She shouldn't. And in the chamber, Wyatt faltered. The council noticed. Ariel leaned close, her voice a low purr. Good. Let her unravel where everyone can watch. She dragged one manicured nail down his sleeve, slow and possessive. Michael turned his head slightly. I'm not Wyatt, Ariel. Don't mistake strategy for desire. Undeterred, she smiled, tilting her head. Then perhaps it'll take more than words to break what's left of their bond. Michael smoothed his tie, the line of his shoulders sharp in the mirror. You've kept the cracks open. I've fed the doubt. Now it needs something visible, something no one can ignore. Her eyes glinted, amused. Direct? Dangerous, but interesting. He finally faced her fully, voice low and certain. After the toast. The crowd will thin. Lure him to the corridor. He only needs to see her with me. Her smile lingered, smooth and dangerous. Very well, Michael. I'll see that Wyatt is in place. But stage shadows rarely topple thrones. Sometimes they just change who sits on them. Michael gave the knot of his tie one final adjustment, satisfied with his reflection. They'll play their part at dinner. After that, they'll play mine. Ariel rose in one fluid motion, the whisper of silk following her across the chamber. She left him with a smile that curved like a blade, a silent promise she would never follow his script. Chapter 28. The evening's formal dinner gathered the council and Bloodmoon's elders beneath a canopy of ceremony and expectation. It should have felt like celebration, yet a faint tension hummed beneath the silver and candlelight, easy to ignore but impossible to miss. The dining hall shimmered in candlelight and silver, elegant, unaware. Long tables stretched in disciplined lines beneath banners of crimson and black. The council elders sat like judgment carved in flesh, Alaric at their head. Helena and Luther anchored Bloodmoon's side, her pearls gleaming, his broad hands folded with steady weight. Wyatt entered last with Joselyn on his arm. She moved like tempered steel, composed, precise, even as he eased her into her chair. Music breathed from the corner. Omegas flowed quietly and efficiently, trays laden with lamb and wine dark as garnet. Behind the tapestry the air cooled to shadow. Ariel stepped from it, copper hair wound neat, eyes catching the faint glint of flame. She uncorked a vial no larger than her thumb and tipped a single drop into one goblet. The red swallowed it whole. An Omega hurried in, flustered, tray half-balanced. Ariel's fingertip brushed the stem of one cup. Her voice was silk. That one, to the Luna. The servant bobbed quickly and vanished back into light. Wyatt's gaze swept the hall on instinct. Elders, guests. Michael's quiet poise a few seats away. Alaric's composure a blade behind calm. Nothing looked wrong. And yet havoc stirred, uneasy, claws pricking at the edge of his mind. No threat, Wyatt told himself. Tension, that's all. Jocelyn's smile never wavered, though the aftertaste of their earlier argument clung to her stillness. Helena offered a platter. Lamb? Joselyn nodded, polite and accepted. Alaric lifted his cup. His voice carried smooth and deliberate, to Bloodmoon's steadiness under scrutiny, and to what reveals itself when no one expects it. Glasses rose. Wyatt's followed, though his gaze caught for a moment on Jocelyn's. Face. She drank. One swallow. Her hand tightened white around the stem. Joselyn? His voice was barely a whisper. Her lashes fluttered, slow, unfocused. Heat rushed through her veins, searing and wrong. The room tilted, candlelight fractured into halos. She set the cup down with careful precision, as though the table itself had shifted beneath her fingers. Joselyn, the word tore out of him. His chair scraped hard against the floor. A breath hitched in her throat. Then the goblet toppled, red arcing like a wound across linen as she folded sideways. Wyatt caught her before the stone could. Her skin blazed against his arms, pulse erratic under his palm. The hall detonated. Chairs crashed, wolves surged back. Helena's cry broke the silence as Luther rose, aura flooding the room. Healer! Wyatt's command cracked like thunder. Clear space! Stefan barked, forcing a ring open with sheer dominance. Sebastian drove the doors shut. No one leaves. Wyatt lowered Joselyn to the floor, one hand cradling her head, the other pressed firm to her sternum as if sheer force could steady her heart. Stay with me, he said, half order, half plea. Helena knelt opposite, smoothing sweat-damp hair back with trembling hands. Breathe, sweetheart. Come back. The healer dropped beside them, kit snapping open. Poison, he said flatly, already mixing antidotes. We must slow it now. Drops touched Joselyn's lips. Her body shuddered once, a strangled sound catching in her throat. The tremor didn't stop. Her pulse thrashed beneath Wyatt's hand, too fast, too weak, uneven. Again the healer muttered, dosing another drop. Wyatt barely heard him over the sound of his own heartbeat hammering in his ears. The scent of wine and iron burned the air. His aura exploded outward, wrath made tangible. The air buckled, torches guttered. He turned toward the doors, shielding her fully. Prep the healer's wing, he ordered, voice like tempered steel. Alaric's tone cut cold. Seize the goblet, test every bottle, find who touched that tray. Wyatt ran for the stairwell, breath tearing in his chest. Helena and the healer rushed close behind, Sebastian on their heels, Stefan trying to hold back the chaos swelling in their wake. On the stairs, Joselyn's head shifted faintly against his shoulder, lashes fluttering once before sinking back into darkness. Wyatt's jaw locked, every muscle drawn tight. Inside, Havoc prowled, silent, vicious, his fury a pulse of pure violence. Whoever touched her cup will bleed for it. Chapter 29. The healer's wing reeked of herbs and smoke, salves simmering in copper pots that hissed faintly over low flames. Outside Joselyn's chamber, warriors had doubled the guard. Wyatt paced the hall, rage barely contained. Havoc clawed hot and feral beneath his skin, demanding blood. His alpha aura rolled through the wing in a crushing wave, forcing lesser wolves to bare their throats in submission. When his fist slammed into the stone, the wall cracked under the blow, dust raining from the ceiling as his power detonated through the hall. Twice they tried for her. The words vibrated through the silence. Whoever planned it just marked their own grave. Stefan's growl rumbled low. Then we hunt. Whoever slipped that poison past us knew the hall, knew her. Sebastian's voice was cold, precise even in fury, which means the danger isn't outside our walls. It's here, breathing our air. I don't care if you tear this fortress apart stone by stone. Wyatt snarled, voice carrying like thunder. Bring me the hand that touched her glass. Yes, Alpha. Sebastian and Stefan bowed sharply and strode off, boots echoing like war drums down the wing. Only Luther remained. He spoke at last, voice calm but edged. Keep her near. Someone didn't want her alive at that table tonight. Wyatt turned toward him, jaw tight. Someone crossed a line they won't walk back from. For the first time Luther's composure shifted. He tilted his head, the faintest grimace cutting his stillness. Stay with her, son. Wyatt stayed rooted in the corridor, breath tight, aura still pressing heavy enough that the guards dared not lift their eyes. Havoc prowled restless, but leashed, claws raking his chest. The Alpha's fury did not break. It held, and every wolf in the wing felt the weight of it. Chapter 30. The healer's wing was hushed in the gray before dawn. The brazier burned low, filling the chamber with the faint sting of herbs and smoke. Outside, boots had long since stilled, but tension still pressed against the stone like it hadn't left with the night. Wyatt had not moved from her side. He sat in the narrow chair by her cot, shoulders squared but weighted, his shirt rumpled, collar loose, jaw shadowed from a sleepless night. His hair was disordered from restless hands, eyes hollowed, the sharp lines of his face roughened by worry. He looked nothing like the immovable Alpha who commanded the training ring. He looked wrecked. Still his hand hadn't left hers. His thumb brushed slow circles over her knuckles, a rhythm worn into the dark hours as though the motion itself had kept her tethered here. Joselyn stirred faintly, lashes fluttering. The world felt blurred, her limbs heavy, but the warmth of his hand anchored her. Wyatt leaned forward the instant she moved, relief breaking across his features with a force so sharp it almost undid him. His thumb pressed firmer against her hand, his voice rough, stripped down to its marrow. If you'd taken your last breath last night. The words slipped out, barely a whisper. I wouldn't have cared about anything after. I'd have lost the only thing that matters. The words slid through the fog, not sharp enough to hold, but heavy enough to settle deep. Joselyn caught them in pieces, hazy, as though heard through glass. But she heard them. Her lips parted, a faint whisper breaking through. Wyatt. The sound struck him like a blow. His body jolted, a sharp inhale tearing free, eyes burning as though her voice had cracked something wide open in him. He bowed over their joined hands, his voice breaking low. Gods, I thought I'd lost you. Her lashes dipped, her whisper trailing. I'm still here. Relief cracked him open. His voice came hoarse, stripped to the bone. And I'll keep you here, whatever it costs. The door creaked open. The healer stepped in, soft-footed, her eyes sweeping from Joselyn's still figure to Wyatt slumped in the chair. For a beat she only looked at the Alpha's rumpled shirt, the sleepless lines cut into his face, the way his hand gripped Joselyn's as if it were the only proof she was alive. "She's strong," the healer said quietly, voice careful not to disturb. "Stronger than most would be. You should rest, Alpha." Wyatt didn't look up, his thumb still moving steady over Joselyn's hand. "Not while she needs me." The healer bowed once, understanding flickering in her gaze, and slipped out. Chapter 31. The healers declared her out of danger, though strength returned slower than pride allowed. Wyatt had posted guards by the wing door and rarely left her side until she could stand without swaying. When she finally left the wing, the silence pressed differently. Less fear, more confinement. The morning light poured through the Luna suite. It chased away the quiet. Joselyn was halfway through her tea when the door burst open and Maris, Stefan's mate, blew in like a summer wind, curls flying, smile far too bright for the hour. "Luna, get up, you're coming with me." Joselyn didn't look up. "Am I?" "Yes." Maris dropped a heap of dresses on the bed, already rifling through them. "You've been breathing the same four walls for a week. We're going out. Coffee, clothes, something that doesn't smell like council politics." Joselyn hid a smile behind her cup. "Shopping and coffee do sound tempting." "Good. You can thank me later. Wyatt will probably have a conniption." Maris waved a hand. "He's brooding over maps. By the time he notices, we'll be back, with caffeine and a new wardrobe." Joselyn set her cup down, resigned but faintly amused. 1 hour, she was still recovering and knew the healers wouldn't want her out for long. 2, Maris bargained. "You'll thank me twice." The room quieted behind them as the door closed. Joselyn followed Maris down the quiet corridor, their footsteps echoing through the hall. When they stepped into the courtyard, the mist had lifted and sunlight stretched over the open road ahead. The driver waited by the car, engine idling. They climbed in, doors thudding shut, and the vehicle eased toward the city, trees flashing by, the air shifting, less pine, more asphalt, a faint taste of freedom. Maris talked without pause, launching into stories about Stefan's folded socks, the baker who flirted then panicked, Sebastian charming everyone in sight, and the tailor Wyatt terrified just by existing. Joselyn laughed softly. "I imagine Stefan adores you. He doesn't have a choice. I'm his fated." Maris's grin was all mischief. "He scowls for an hour, then brings me breakfast. Balance." After a beat, she added, "You ever notice how we balance our mates out? Stefan scowls enough for both of us. Wyatt glares just for fun." Jocelyn's lips curved. Perhaps that's their version of affection. Then they're both very affectionate. Maris smiled. The road opened into city sprawl, glass, noise, the smell of roasted coffee drifting through the vents. For the first time in days, Joselyn let herself breathe. The hum of the car faded into city noise. For a heartbeat, she almost felt ordinary again. Just two women chasing coffee and color instead of politics. The illusion held until they stepped through the glass doors of the boutique. The shop shimmered with gold trim and polished glass. Music floated between racks of silk and chiffon. A few packmates browsing nearby glanced her way, whispering, checking if the Luna still looked fragile. One voice, too low to be polite. "Still no wolf. Must heal slow." Joselyn ignored it, shoulders straight. Maris, oblivious or pretending to be, swept into color, crimson, sapphire, wild green. "No more black," she declared, holding a red dress to her shoulders. "You need something that says, 'Poison couldn't kill me, and politics won't either.'" Joselyn gave her a dry look but took it. "You're relentless. It's part of my charm." The fitting room smelled of cedar and new cloth. Joselyn slipped into the dress. The fabric was cool against her skin. When she stepped out, Maris gasped. "There. Proof life looks good on you." Joselyn faced the mirror. The color startled her, too alive. She smoothed the hand down the fabric, and light shimmered faintly beneath her skin. Silver, quick, gone. Her palm tingled. She flexed her fingers once and blamed the lighting. "Luna?" Maris's tone softened. "You sure you're okay?" "Fine, just a little lightheaded. You're pale. Maybe I'm not used to so much red." Joselyn forced a small smile. Maris wasn't convinced. "Water, then we're done." Joselyn nodded, but the floor tilted anyway. Heat rolled under her skin, sound dulled. She caught a rack for balance. Maris was beside her in a blink. "That's it, we're leaving." Joselyn tried to protest, voice barely above a whisper. "It's nothing. Home," Maris said firmly, steering her toward the door. Joselyn let her. Pride could wait. The cool air outside hit sharper than expected. Joselyn drew a slow breath, steadying herself as Maris waved down the driver. The world kept spinning, even if her pulse hadn't caught up. Silence filled the car. Only the hum of tires. After a mile, Maris muttered, trying for humor, "Next time I'm packing a healer's kit in a paper bag, you can faint in style." "I didn't faint," Joselyn said, dry as dust. "You almost did. Almost doesn't count," Maris groaned. "If I'm demoted to pup duty, tell them I died fighting for fashion." Jocelyn's mouth twitched. "I'll have it engraved." Her phone buzzed. 3 missed calls. Maris glanced at the screen and winced. "He's going to blame me, isn't he? He blames himself for everything." Joselyn kept her gaze on the passing trees. "He just aims it at whoever's closest." Outside, the forest thickened again. The air shifted, charged, heavy. Ahead, the gates waited, and the storm behind them was already awake. The gates hadn't fully opened before Joselyn felt it, his presence rolling through the air like pressure before a storm. Even the wind seemed to pause, leaves flattening as if the forest itself knew who approached. Maris muttered, "And that's what a furious alpha looks like." The SUV barely stopped before Wyatt yanked the door open, storm already in his eyes. "Out." Maris climbed out first. "Alpha, this was my idea. Go." His voice was low enough to vibrate the air. She hesitated, then slipped past him, muttering something about tyrants with jawlines. Joselyn stepped out, composed, even with fatigue in her limbs. "If this is an ambush, I'm too tired for a lecture." Wyatt's gaze found her immediately, steady, cutting. "You left Packlands without a guard, without Stefan. You're still recovering." "I wasn't kidnapped," she said evenly. "I went shopping. You went unprotected. I went to breathe." He exhaled and ran a hand down his face. "You came back pale as death. That's your idea of breathing? I'm fine." His tone stayed low, the words measured but tight at the edges. "This is not what fine looks like." She studied him a beat, how his hands flexed once at his sides, how his scent carried agitation. "You can't control every move I make." "This isn't about control," he said, quieter now. "It's about what happens when you don't come back." Her voice gentled, aware he was wound tighter than the moment called for. "I am back and okay." He didn't answer right away. His jaw worked once, gold flashing faint at the edge of his gaze before he forced it down. "Next time, you don't leave without a guard. I don't need an escort to buy coffee. You need one when you come back looking like this." The words came rough, more frustration than he intended, worry braided tight beneath it. Her eyes narrowed, not angry, more searching. "You're overreacting. Maybe." He stepped closer, aura still coiled tight. His gaze held hers, steady, unflinching. "But next time, you don't walk out without a word." He exhaled once, the tension easing just enough as he reached for her. "Come on." His hand drew her in, his scent settling around her. Quiet, grounding, familiar. Somewhere across the compound, another door opened, lighter, calmer, and Maris's voice broke the quiet. Inside the Gamma quarters she paced while Stefan cleaned his weapons in steady, deliberate strokes. "He didn't look happy," she said at last. "Not that he ever does, but this time felt different." Stefan didn't look up. She left the territory while she's still recovering. He sees danger, she sees limits. Maris sighed. Maybe they're both right. Maybe. He set the blade aside, finally meeting her eyes. Fear has a way of sounding like anger, especially when you almost lost someone. Her expression softened. "You almost sound sympathetic. Don't tell him." A faint grin tugged at his mouth. "I've got a reputation to keep." Chapter 32. The council convened Bloodmoon again, for what should have been a routine evaluation of the pack's progress and Wyatt's leadership, but the air carried a different weight tonight, thick and watchful, the kind that warned of words better left unspoken. Wyatt sat at the head of the table, the Bloodmoon crest at his chest catching dull light. Beside him, Joselyn sat composed but pale, her shawl drawn close, poise masking the lingering ache of poison in her veins. She had braced for more questions of stability, strength, perhaps another test of unity. Instead, a stillness fell, the kind that precedes a blow. It made her skin prickle before Alaric even spoke. "While we came to assess Alpha Wyatt's candidacy to lead the Council of Alphas," the Chancellor began. His voice even, too even. "Circumstance forces another concern. Bloodmoon bleeds not from strategy, but from its Luna's endangerment. The Council raises a matter of security, the Luna's safety." Shock reverberated through the room at the open shift of purpose, from weighing an Alpha's worth to weighing whether his Luna should be stripped from his side. Wyatt's aura flared, his chair scraping back as he rose to his full height. You mean tear her from my side. His voice was iron, every syllable laced with command. That will not happen. One of the elders leaned forward, his beard streaked white. This is not without precedent, Alpha Wyatt. When a Luna has been targeted, the council may place her in protective custody, temporary, neutral, until threats are resolved. Another elder, sharper-eyed, spoke next. In the north, during the Bloodmoon raids, 3 Lunas were sheltered under council guard. 2 lived because of it. The law exists for a reason. Joselyn's chin tipped higher, her voice steady despite the pallor in her cheeks. When she angled toward the table to answer, her fingers trembled a fraction around the shawl. I stay with my Alpha. That is not up for debate. The elder's gaze shifted back to Wyatt. You speak of unity, but a Luna without a wolf already struck once. Your enemies will see weakness. Wyatt leaned forward, hands braced on the table. Havoc's low growl threaded through his ribs. What they'll see is an Alpha who protects what's his. Bloodmoon does not hand over its Luna like a borrowed blade. The silence cracked when Michael spoke, his tones smooth but cutting. And yet under your watch she was poisoned. Not by rogues, not by outsiders. Here, inside your own hall. His silver-gray eyes glinted. Perhaps custody exists for a reason. Wyatt's head snapped toward him, gold sparking. He answered, flat as a verdict. Know your place, Michael, or wait to find your pack pledged to someone else. Michael's smile thinned, but he didn't back away. If I wanted her gone, Alpha, she would be gone. Wyatt stepped into him, the heat of his aura rolling out like fire, forcing the room to still. Michael shoved back his chair and rose with equal force, his wolf growled low in his chest, a clear challenge, silver flaring in his eyes as their Alpha auras collided. For a heartbeat the air burned with the clash of 2 Alphas, neither yielding. Wyatt's tone was quiet, sharp as broken steel, and if I find your scent near a shadow, I'll break you before you draw breath again. Havoc pressed forward, claws itching to rip. Enough, Alphas. This is not the place for posturing. Alaric's voice cut, sharper than usual. Division won't unmask the hand that struck. What matters is finding who slipped poison past every guard. Wyatt's chest heaved, rage barely leashed. She does not leave my side. Not now. Not ever. One of the elders folded his hands, gaze cool. Then you'd best pray your strength is enough, Alpha. Because if it is not, the council will revisit this question, and next time it will not be request but decree. The chamber chilled, the words hanging like a sentence already half-written. Havoc's growl rattled in Wyatt's chest, low and feral, vibrating through the silence. His eyes burned gold at the edges, promise and threat in one. When the council finally adjourned, Wyatt rose without a word. Joselyn pushed herself up carefully, the faintest wobble in her step betraying how much the poison still lingered, before moving at his side. Wyatt's arm closed firm around her waist, steadying her. Sebastian's eyes tracked them to the door, a slight tilt of his head the only acknowledgement given. No words, but approval threaded the silence. Only in the corridor's cooler air did Joselyn speak, her voice quiet but cutting. You can't fight every shadow with rage, she said. Then, softer, almost despite herself, but you fought anyway. She hated how true it felt, the steadiness she'd found in his rage, the echo of a vow whispered in the dark when she wasn't supposed to hear him. Wyatt's jaw flexed, his reply rough, iron in its core. I'll fight every shadow until there are none left. They continued down the hall side by side. Chapter 33. Moonlight carved the colonnade into pale ribs of stone and shadow. Michael stalked through them with his jaw set, shoulders rigid, fury coiled too tight to contain. He wasn't searching, he was hunting. He found her slipping along the arch, copper hair gleaming in the light. His hand closed around her arm before she could speak. He yanked her into the alcove, stone swallowing the sound. His grip hit hard, his voice jagged. Tell me you didn't touch her. We had a plan. You were supposed to lure Wyatt, catch him at her side, not poison her. Ariel straightened, but her eyes flickered. For the first time, a flash of unease. It wasn't enough to kill her, she said quickly, only to shake her, to make her doubt she's safe with him. If she doesn't feel safe, she'll leave him. That was the point. His palm slammed against the wall beside her head, the crack echoing sharp. The air pressed hot with his aura, her breath caught despite herself. What I wanted, his voice tore low, rough, was her alive. You went against me, against our plan. You nearly took her from me. Ariel swallowed. I acted because you wouldn't. You would drag this out forever. She needed to see the truth. Wyatt can't protect her. That fear was supposed to drive her away from him, toward you. Michael leaned in, his face a breath from hers, eyes burning silver at the edges. His wolf clawed close to the surface, every line of him vibrating with barely contained violence. You thought fear would pry her loose. Instead, she clung to him harder. Ariel stiffened under the weight of him, breath shallow. Her smile stayed sharp, but her wolf instinctually submitted, low beneath the press of his aura. "Risk her again," Michael whispered, low and lethal, "and I'll end you before Wyatt ever gets the chance." Ariel held his gaze, but her pulse thudded under his fingers. The defiance in her smile wavered, then steadied again, sharp as broken glass. "One day you'll see I was right. She'll doubt him. And when she does, she'll run to you." His wolf surged, silver light cutting through his eyes. He shoved her back, disgust curling his lip. "You don't touch her again. Not with poison, not with shadows, not ever." He turned on his heel, fury clawing hot in his chest. Joselyn had been a breath from gone. He would not forgive it. She was his. In the alcove's shadow, Ariel smoothed her sleeve where his hand had marked her skin. Her smile curved again, thin and dangerous, but her breath still shook. Let him rage, she thought. Fear had been planted, and fear, once sown, never truly left. Chapter 34. The clearing bustled with laughter and chatter as pups scrambled through the grass under the watchful eyes of Omegas. Joselyn moved among them, answering a mother's soft question about schooling, bending to admire a little girl's bouquet of wildflowers. For the first time since the banquet, she felt almost woven into the rhythm of the pack. The lesson shifted to the forest's edge where healers pointed out herbs and roots. Joselyn stooped to listen, catching the scent of mint as a pup plucked at a stem, until movement at the corner of her eye snapped her breath short. One boy had wandered farther than the rest, small legs carrying him toward the break in the trees, where the ground fell away to sky. "Stay close," an Omega called, voice tightening, but the child's giggle carried on the wind. Jocelyn's pulse jolted. She hurried, skirts snagging on roots, her shoes slipping on damp shale. By the time she reached him, the puppet scrambled too near the drop. Pebbles skittered under his heel. His gasp was small, frightened. She lunged, seizing his arm. The jolt of strength that surged through her startled even her. A speed, a force that felt borrowed, foreign. But it was enough to wrench him back. The pup tumbled into grass with a yelp. Safe. But the momentum pitched her forward. Her foot slid. The cliff edge gave a groaning crack and tore away beneath her. Wind yanked her skirts, hair lashing her face as the abyss opened wide below. Hands caught at her wrists. Omegas shouting, straining, muscles quivering as the stone beneath them fractured piece by piece. For every inch they pulled, the cliff sheared another away. "Luna!" voices cried. "Hold on, Luna. Get Alpha Wyatt," someone screamed. Then the air itself shifted, dense, electric. A ripple of dominance slammed the clearing, wolves dropping their eyes instinctively. His aura hit first, and then he was there. Wyatt's hand clamped around her arm like a vice, iron and unbreakable. In one effortless surge, he ripped her back from the edge, her body colliding against his chest. Behind her, stone cascaded into the void where she had been. The world narrowed to the crush of his grip. The heat of his body braced around her, the thunder of his heart hammering steady and unyielding. For one breath, fear tangled with something sharper. How absolute he felt around her, immovable, as the cliff that had just given way. "You nearly went over that cliff," he growled, voice breaking low, fear hidden sharp beneath rage. His eyes burned gold. "Don't ever scare me like that again." Her breath tore uneven, chest aching, but she didn't move. His arms closed tighter, iron and heat. The pup's small voice quavered behind the Omegas. "I'm sorry, Luna." Wyatt bent his head, voice low but carried by his aura, so every wolf in the clearing felt the vow. "No force will take you from me. Not stone, not fang, not council decree. Any who try will bleed for it." The words tremored through her, not command, not dominance, but something deeper, something that struck along her bones. It shouldn't have steadied her, but it did. The clearing exhaled as one, relieved, shaken. Several wolves dropped to one knee, fists pressed to their chests in silent oath. Others bowed their heads, murmuring blessings under their breath. Even the youngest pups stilled, wide-eyed, clinging to their mothers. But all eyes followed as their alpha carried his Luna back from the edge, her face pressed against his shoulder, his stride unshakable. At the tree line, the elders stood apart, silent, their gazes sharpened, measuring not only her falter but the strength in the bond that had defied the cliff itself. Chapter 35. The Chancellor's study was usually a place for quiet strategy. Today, the air felt sharpened, heavy with warnings and consequences. Leather and brass gleamed under soft lamplight, parchment and clove threading the room like restrained power. Alaric and the elders bent close over his table, their words hushed and purposeful. Authority measured in whispers before the turn. 3 strikes, one said quietly. Rogues at their border, poison in their hall. A Luna nearly lost to the cliff. We can't stay observers forever. Another leaned back in his chair, tone dry. Order means little when its Luna keeps standing in the crosshairs. A shadow of dawning crossed Alaric's face. The pattern's sufficient. We act before a fourth. The Luna moves to neutral, ground, by our hand, not his. The words settled. Final. Alaric's amber gaze flicked toward the door, the motion deliberate. Beyond it, footsteps echoed down the hall, steady and sure. The room stilled as the hinges groaned, uncertainty threading the air as the unplanned audience crossed the threshold. Wyatt entered first, broad-shouldered, dark hair brushed back. Joselyn followed, every inch the Luna, composed despite the uncertainty. Helena came next with Luther at her side, Sebastian and Stefan flanking in measured precision. Michael trailed last, silver eyes sharp, anticipation gleaming beneath his calm. The air shifted as they crossed the threshold, the low light seeming to bend toward the weight of Wyatt's presence. An elder leaned forward, voice like gravel. A Luna nearly went over a cliff. A slip, yes, but a Luna without her wolf should never walk without guard. Where was her gamma? Where were her sentries? A quill scratched to a stop, parchment rustled in the hush. Wyatt's voice cut low, sharp as a blade. She had me. That is all the guard she requires. Another elder's gaze sharpened. And yet rogues breached your borders. Poison entered your hall. Now a near fall. You cannot be everywhere, Alpha. Bloodmoon's strength should not rest on one man's shadow. Jocelyn's expression smoothed into the practiced calm that had become her armor. I am not some jewel to be locked away. I am the Luna. My place is with the pack, not hidden behind stone and steel. Every gaze swung to her, weighing her words like evidence, but she did not lower her eyes. A murmur rippled. One elder's mouth thinned. Strength is not stubbornness, Luna. If your wolf slumbers, the Alpha should do what you cannot. Michael's voice slid in, smooth as oil. And if he cannot, then perhaps she shouldn't stand at his side at all. An Alpha who fails to shield his Luna fails his pack. The words came smooth, but the flash in his eyes wasn't political. It was personal, sharp with something close to anger. Silence fell, thick, absolute. Wyatt's Alpha aura sucked the air from the room. He spoke, his voice so low it felt like the sound of a blade sliding from leather. You breathe her name again, and you'll choke on it. The table's inkwell trembled, an elder's chair scraped back. You forget whose roof you sit under, Michael. On Bloodmoon land you know your place, or I'll carve it into you. Michael's smile curved, taunting, bold words. But even the council begins to wonder if your place is slipping. The air thinned. Wyatt leaned forward, his voice a razor. Name her again, I'll erase you from this room. This is my territory, my Luna. I won't have a stray Alpha teaching me how to guard what's mine. The quiet that followed was thick, charged. For a heartbeat, Joselyn felt something answer deep in her chest, a faint heat, gone before she could name it. Alaric's voice cut through, measured but sharp. Enough. The Council has authority under the Alliance Pact. Custody has been invoked before, twice in living memory, and it restored order. If Bloodmoon cannot keep its Luna safe, the Council will. His tone remained even, but the faint curl of satisfaction at his mouth betrayed the verdict already forming. Wyatt's jaw locked, every muscle taut, but he forced silence. Jocelyn's shoulders squared, though her pulse hammered. Alaric's verdict landed like iron. Tomorrow, we decide. Chapter 36. The firelight painted the Alpha suite in gold and shadow. Joselyn stood before the hearth, her back half turned, gaze fixed on the flames as though she could lose herself in their crackle. The heat licked against her skin, but it couldn't burn off the weight of judgment that still clung from the council room. The door shut behind Wyatt. His steps carried across the stone, measured, heavy, and the air thickened before he even spoke. A low sound, almost a growl, moved under his breath, havoc pacing just beneath the surface. The elders sat in judgment today, he said, voice rough, words coming in hard fragments. They weighed your place at my side. Every word you gave them, they'll twist it. Her eyes stayed on the fire. So, I should sit silent while they measure my worth, while they decide if I am a liability. That silence would have been the true weakness. The words cut through him. They weren't judging her worth. They were judging his ability to protect it. And that failure tasted like blood in his mouth. He closed the distance, his presence pressing against her. His hand rose slow, fingers brushing her jaw. Look at me, he whispered. Reluctantly she did, and the storm waiting in his gaze stole her breath. You think liability makes a pack bow? His voice was raw, gold sparking in his eyes. They bow because of us, because of what we are. Her pulse leapt, lips parting. You speak as if you believe it. The question wasn't a challenge. It was hope she didn't trust. I do. His arm slid to her waist, hauling her flush against him. His mouth crushed hers. The kiss was molten, fierce, alpha claiming Luna, and instead of resisting, Joselyn froze for a heartbeat, then clung to him, fingers curling in his hair, dragging him closer. She should have stepped back, she knew that, but the gravity of him pulled too strong. His growl rumbled through her, vibrating against her ribs as havoc surged, something fierce and undeniable sparking where no touch should reach. She yielded with a gasp, lips parting under his. His tongue slid against hers, hot, demanding, her knees buckled, his hands locked at her hips, dragging her tight until the hard line of his body pressed mercilessly into her. Heat stormed her veins, molten and unrelenting. Her palm slid down his chest, nails scraping before flattening over the ridges of his stomach. He shuddered beneath her touch, breath tearing ragged into her mouth. Wyatt broke for air only to trail his lips down her jaw, her throat. His canines elongated, grazing her pulse, Havoc's growl rattling against her skin. She stumbled back, and his grip only tightened, guiding her until the backs of her legs struck the bed. The mattress dipped as he pressed her down, his body braced over hers, heat and weight and alpha aura wrapping her whole. Jocelyn's gasp wasn't fear, it was want. Her body arched up to meet his, treacherous and desperate, a silent yes that burned through every nerve. Wyatt's hands slid down, fingers curling at her thighs as if to lift her into him, claim her fully, and that was where she shattered. With a cry, she shoved hard at his chest, tearing her mouth free before the point of no return. "The council will decide tomorrow," she rasped, breath breaking. "Not you, not me." Wyatt froze, chest heaving, Havoc thrashing to close the distance again. For a heartbeat he hovered above her, gold blazing, every muscle coiled to strike. Then he wrenched himself back. The mattress groaned as he pushed away, jaw locked against the snarl ripping through him. The space between them seared. She sat up slowly, smoothing her skirt more to still the tremor in her hands than to perfect the lines. Rising on unsteady legs, she crossed back toward the fire. The flames caught her reflection in the glass, composed, calm, but her pulse thundered beneath it. Behind her, Wyatt's eyes tracked her, burning hotter, Havoc snarling inside, unrelenting. Ours, the wolf rumbled, low and certain. Always ours. Chapter 37. The council chamber breathed like a living thing, tight, restless, full of the hush that came with waiting. Everyone strained for the words that would decide the Luna's fate. Stone and steel carried the quiet like a threat. Even the walls seemed to listen. Wyatt sat rigid at the long table, hands braced flat on the scarred wood, the muscle in his jaw ticking like a clock counting down. Beside him, Joselyn held her composure like armor, spine straight, hands folded at her waist, calm so precise it looked like defiance. The elders filled the opposite side, carved into their seats like figures from the same cold stone. At the center, Chancellor Alaric leaned forward, fingers steepled, expression unreadable. "When incidents have threatened a Luna in the past, this council has always acted," Alaric said, voice steady and cold. "For their protection, for the stability of the Alliance. It is precedent, not punishment. 3 incidents this close together cannot be dismissed." His tone carried no satisfaction, only the precision of duty, cold and absolute. Wyatt's voice cut the air like a blade. "My Luna needs no cage. She is mine to guard, and no council strips her from me." An elder, voice brittle with age, leaned forward. "Alpha Wyatt, your protection has been inadequate." Havoc prowled low under Wyatt's ribs, muscles coiling tight, but he held. Control wasn't calm. It was violence waiting for permission. "You call it inadequate?" His words low and dangerous. "She stands. She breathes. Because of me. No hand but mine will keep her safe." His eyes burned gold in the torchlight, aura pressing hard against the walls. Luther spoke then, voice low, heavy as stone. "Precedent cannot bind what Bloodmoon carries. If our Luna is taken, it will break more than her." The chamber stilled. Before another elder could reply, Joselyn rose from her chair. The movement was calm but decisive. She placed a hand on the table, meeting every gaze that turned to her. "You speak of protection as though stripping a Luna from her alpha strengthens a pack. It does not. It fractures it. Poison did not fell me. Rogues did not breach us. A fall did not break me. Each time I stood. Each time Bloodmoon stood with me. And it will stand again. Do not mistake survival for weakness. My strength is here, at my alpha's side. To tear us apart is not protection. It is harm. And mark me well, if you cut me from him, it is not only Bloodmoon you weaken. It is the Alliance." Her voice carried like flint through smoke, clear, unyielding, cutting through the chamber's stale air. One elder scoffed softly. Another leaned forward, unwillingly impressed. A third avoided her gaze altogether. Sebastian and Stefan stood braced at either end of the room, wolves flickering in their eyes. Helena sat taut, hands clasped tight in her lap. while Luther's massive frame loomed silent and steady. Wyatt didn't move, but his chest rose and fell too sharply, havoc clawing at his ribs, demanding release. Gold burned hotter across his gaze, his aura thrumming like a storm about to break. Alaric's gaze fixed on him, precise as a blade. "Leash your wolf alpha, Wyatt. If you shift in this chamber, it will be rebellion against the Alliance." The words weren't caution. They were a threat. The pause before the words stretched too long. The presiding elder's voice broke it. Flat, impersonal, final. "By decree of this council, Luna Joselyn shall be confined under neutral custody on Bloodmoon lands." Jocelyn's breath hitched. It was the only sound she made as the world tilted. Wyatt didn't move. The decree settled over him like a weight, heavy and absolute. Havoc pressed hard beneath his skin. A silent snarl coiled tight in his chest. He held it there, barely. No one spoke. The room seemed to shrink around him, the air thinning under the strain of an alpha's fury held on a knife's edge. Every wolf felt it, the storm gathering behind his stillness. And storms, once held too long, never broke. Cleanly. Chapter 38. The terrace doors slammed open, night air rushing past as Wyatt burst onto the stone terrace. Moonlight cut across the marble in sharp silver, barely touching the storm rolling off him. He stood there first, still, breath rough, before pacing the length of the balustrade like a predator boxed too tight. Stillness was the only thing keeping the terrace standing. Every step hit the stone with controlled violence, his aura hot in the cold night air. Only then did the others follow. Luther, Sebastian, and Stefan stepped onto the terrace, forming a loose wall behind him. Elena guided Joselyn forward, her hand brushing her arm, a small, steadying touch. For a heartbeat, the only sounds were Wyatt's footsteps and the wind tearing through the open doors. Havoc prowled beneath his skin, restless, furious, every instinct demanding motion, violence, something to break. Then the words snapped loose. "Neutral custody, on my lands." His voice tore through the night, raw, thundered. They dare bring their enforcers into Bloodmoon and call it protection? His fist struck the rail. Stone cracked, dust drifted down like falling ash. "I can bear this," Joselyn said softly, steel threaded beneath the calm. "You heard them. It's on our lands. They cannot take me from you." Wyatt turned on her, havoc blazing gold in his eyes, aura rolling thick enough to make the air shudder. "No council, no alliance. No one tears you from me and lives." "Wyatt," Luther's voice cut in, low, unyielding. He caught Wyatt's shoulder, grip iron, grounding without gentleness. Wyatt froze, not calm, not yielded, halted cold. The only man alive who could still stop him. "Neutral watch," Luther said, "clipped now. Their leash, their rules, fine. But she stays here, with us, with you. That is the decree." Wyatt's breath came ragged, heat rippling off him in waves as he fought for control. The thought of her being taken turned everything red. When he spoke, the sounds scraped out low and raw. "Let them try. I'll put their bodies in the ground before I yield." Sebastian's stance tightened, tracking every shift of Wyatt's aura like a soldier reading the edge of a blade. This was the moment wars started, or ended. A tremor ran through Stefan's frame, the faint shimmer of his wolf ghosting beneath his skin. Helena drew Joselyn closer, instinctive, a mother trying to gather what the council had just splintered. The wind pressed cold across the terrace, dust skittering over stone. No one dared move closer. Wyatt's breathing slowed by force, each inhale a strain, each exhale a blade. The promise in his eyes burned hotter than rage. No council, no decree. Nothing would stand when morning came, and Bloodmoon had never learned how to bend. Chapter 39. Moonlight filtered through the tall windows, silvering the floor, too calm for the chaos it held. The stillness felt borrowed, temporary. The suite seemed too small for the fury Wyatt carried. His strides cut hard across the floor, shoulders taut, jaw locked. "They will not take you," he snarled, voice rough enough to scrape. "Not in my hall, not on my lands, not while I breathe." Havoc clawed at his ribs, ready to break through, not to destroy, but to defend. "Wyatt, I'm here." Jocelyn's words cut through the rage, soft but steady. She crossed to him before Havoc could break free, stepping straight into his fury and pressing her palms flat to his chest. It was the first time she didn't brace herself against his anger, only claimed space within it. His heartbeat pounded violently against her hand, each thrum echoing the chaos in his eyes. His hand closed around her wrist, drawing her touch harder against him, as if anchoring himself there. His chest heaved beneath her palm. "They cannot sever us. You are my guard, and I am not gone." The storm faltered. His chest hitched against hers, his breath catching on hers as he leaned in. For a heartbeat they were, forehead to forehead, breath mingling, until she felt the tremor ease. In that trembling breath, she saw his strength differently, not as something that could shatter, but as something that chose to hold her instead. Strength wasn't the storm, it was the choice not to unleash it. A warmth bloomed beneath her ribs, brief and searing, as if something deep within her stirred in answer. She drew a careful breath to keep her composure. Wyatt's hand slid to her waist, the other rising to cup her jaw, drawing her closer until she had nowhere left to stand but against him. He pulled her fully into him, his mouth hovering near her pulse as he inhaled, wildflowers and something uniquely her, like air after drowning, like home reclaimed. "They won't take you from me," he murmured, still a growl but softened, molten at the edges. "They won't," she whispered back, steady though her chest still burned with that impossible warmth. "Because I am still here, on your ground." His thumb traced her jaw, rough and deliberate, tilting her face higher. His breath brushed her lips, uneven and fevered. The air between them tightened, charged. "Let them try," he whispered, his mouth a breath from hers, hovering, aching to claim. Joselyn's reply came soft but unflinching, steel wrapped in silk. "They may cage me, Wyatt, but they will never unmake me." Something pulsed low in her chest at the words, hot and flickering through her like heat, as if strength not wholly her own answered the vow. She drew a careful breath to keep her composure. His breath eased against her mouth, the fire shifting, not extinguished, only tempered by her strength. For that moment, the fury bowed, not defeated, chosen against. Chapter 40. The morning had been gentle for once. Helena poured tea on the terrace, the sun stretching warm across the stone, roses climbing the balustrade. Joselyn sat opposite, the cup steady in her hand even as her stomach refused food. The weight of the council's verdict pressed like lead across her ribs. A fragile calm, the kind that never lasts. "Whatever comes, the pack will still need tending," Helena murmured. Her voice was calm, but a tremor ran beneath it. "If they mean to pull you into custody, I will take the duties of Luna for now. Temporarily." The words dug like claws. Joselyn's gaze lifted, sharp. "They call it custody. I call it exile." Helena's mouth parted, to reassure, to deny, but the crash below cut through her breath. A roar, snarls, the shatter of splintering wood. The peace broke before the scream could rise. They ran. At the stairwell's base, chaos, neutral enforcers in black armor flooded the entry, movements hard, mechanical, precise. The council's crests glinted at their shoulders, dull from use, silver oil gleaming along the seams. Wyatt was already down, wrists locked in silver cuffs, heat rising from scorched skin. His bellow shook the beams overhead. "Unhand me!" Havoc's voice broke through the next snarl, half wolf, half man. "Release me!" Pain, rage, a wolf cage too tight. Sebastian and Stefan were pinned, 3 enforcers on each, straining to hold them. No silver yet, but enough bodies to keep them from helping their alpha. "Wyatt!" Joselyn lunged before 2 enforcers caught her, dragging her back. The cuffs hissed and spat where they touched him, the scent of burned flesh curling through the air. His eyes blazed gold, havoc raging just beneath. "I walk on my own feet." Her voice cut through the din, clear as a blade. "You will not drag me like some captive." The lead enforcer's tone was clipped and cold. "By decree of the council, under the authority of the Alliance Pact, the Luna of Bloodmoon is hereby taken into neutral. Custody for her protection until the threats against her are resolved." Wyatt wrenched against the cuffs, muscle and will straining until the links groaned. "Touch her, and I'll strip the marrow from your bones." "Wyatt, stop tearing yourself apart." Her voice fierce with the fear she refused to show, because watching him break would destroy her faster. One enforcer produced a vial, glass catching the morning light. The bite of wolfsbane stung the air. "Stand down, Alpha, or be subdued further." "Wyatt." Her voice found him through the noise. "Look at me. Don't give them more blood." His gaze snapped to hers, wild gold, the wolf too close to the surface. Joselyn steadied her breath, tuning out the clash of boots and snarls. When she spoke, her words rang clear, cutting through like command. "Enough. You'll not abase my Alpha further for the sake of a spectacle. If the council decrees my custody, then I go by choice. But understand this, Bloodmoon's dignity is not yours to break." A Luna standing tall, not pleading, not bowing. The hall stilled. Even the enforcers hesitated. Helena's hand trembled on the rail. Sebastian's curses rasped through clenched teeth. Stefan slammed his shoulder into the man restraining him, a futile, furious shove. Luther didn't move. His silence was colder than steel. Secure her, the lead enforcer barked. They tightened their grip, moving her toward the doors and down the steps where a convoy of black SUVs waited, engines low and throbbing, windows dark. Wyatt strained again, metal searing his wrists. Havoc's roar ripped from his chest, shaking dust from the rafters. Joselyn! She twisted in their hold until she found his eyes, steady even now. "You swore to protect me," she said, voice low but ringing. "Now let me shield you." A vow, not submission. For a heartbeat, Havoc stilled. The wolf pressed against the chains but didn't break them. Wyatt's breath came rough. The hall fell into a heavy silence as the enforcers led her out, down the steps, into the waiting SUVs, the council's crest stark against the black metal. Helena's hand rose to her mouth, trying to stifle a sob. Sebastian's voice tore through the quiet, raw, furious. Stefan's shoulders shook with the effort to break free. Luther didn't move. His eyes tracked Jocelyn's every movement, cold and deliberate, and for the first time the Luna of Bloodmoon walked into custody, not as prey, but as a woman who refused to bend. On the stone floor, Wyatt knelt in silver, the scent of burned skin and rage hanging heavy. His head bowed only to draw breath. Ours, always ours, not possession, a promise. Chapter 41. The healer's hands moved with practiced precision, but Wyatt's patience frayed with every touch. Silver burns never close quickly, not even for an alpha. The cuffs had left raw welts across his wrists, flesh still smoking faintly as the salve hissed against it. The stench of scorched skin and crushed herbs clung to the air, bitter, metallic, wrong. He didn't flinch. Stripped to the waist, he sat rigid on the bench, shoulders broad and still, the faint sheen of sweat catching the firelight. Fury had nowhere left to go but inward. Across the room, Luther's shadow moved in the firelight. His silence was steadier than comfort, an anchor against Wyatt's breaking restraint. Havoc prowled under Wyatt's skin, restless and coiled, replaying the moment over and over, their Luna torn from them, her scent fading out the door, silver chains burning into his flesh. "They cuffed me like a stray in front of my pack," Wyatt said finally, his voice raw with restraint, "and they dragged her as if she were nothing more than spoils." His fists tightened once, a shallow motion, skin whitening. The healer bowed low, excusing herself without a word. The door eased shut, the faint click swallowed by the low hum of fire and the soft rustle of burning ash. Luther stood at the hearth, one hand braced against the mantel, his gaze fixed on the flames. Firelight carved sharp planes across his face, the heat pressing close. When he turned, his voice was even, threaded with something heavier than anger. "I've seen councils chain wolves before, always under the guise of protection, rarely for the sake of it." Wyatt's head lifted, gold flickering faint at the edges of his eyes. Protection? The word hit like a curse. They call it protection when they tear a Luna from her alpha's arms. Luther's gaze held his, steady as an anchor. "Councils like to call it order," he said, "but order built on fear never lasts." Wyatt's shoulders tensed, the lines of his body rigid but unmoving. They broke. "Into my pack house, father. My pack house. Before my wolves, before my Luna." His tone darkened, quieter but sharper. "They'll answer for it." Luther's voice came low, weighted with years. "They think their decrees hold the line between chaos and order, but it's wolves like you who pay for their ignorance." Wyatt's jaw flexed once. The air seemed to tighten between them, thick with smoke and unsaid things. "There's a new edge to them," Luther went on, eyes narrowing on some thought he didn't voice. "Too quick to judge, too certain. That kind of certainty always hides a hand we can't see." Wyatt said nothing, but the faint tremor at the corner of his mouth betrayed the violence behind his stillness. Havoc growled low in his chest, quiet, feral, waiting. "She stood her ground when they touched her," Luther continued, tone measured, each word deliberate. "Even as they tried to pull her away, she did not bend. And your wolf," his words slowed, "your wolf rose as if the world itself were being stolen." Wyatt's breath hitched. Havoc pressed harder beneath his skin, not just with fury, but with something older, something that felt like recognition. Joselyn at the cliff's edge, defiant even as the ground gave way, the poison that couldn't keep her down. He said nothing, but his silence filled the room. The fire popped, throwing brief sparks across the floor. "They will answer for it," Luther said softly, "but if you meet their control with chaos, you'll prove them right." Wyatt's stare burned into the hearth, jaw clenched, a pulse ticking in his temple. For a moment, the only sound was the fire and the low thrum of the wolf beneath his skin. Luther's gaze softened, though his voice stayed steady. This isn't new, son. It's just worse this time. Wyatt's hands uncurled, then closed again, slow, deliberate. Every hand that touched her, every voice that named her vulnerable. I'll make them remember what it means to steal from Bloodmoon. Luther didn't argue. His hand settled on his. Son's shoulder. Father to son, alpha to alpha. The weight steadied more than it restrained. Then remember this too, Luther said quietly. The council was meant to guide, not rule. Lately, I'm not sure they remember the difference. The fire cracked, spitting sparks that flared and died between them. Neither man spoke again. The air held fury, warning, and something unspoken, a thread tightening in the quiet, waiting for the moment it would finally break. Chapter 42. The neutral wing smelled wrong. Stone scrubbed clean of pack scent, silver threaded into the seams of the floor. Even the air felt watched, still, thin, stripped of warmth. Joselyn sat alone at the narrow table, hands folded in her lap, every instinct aware of the quiet beyond the door. Neutral custody, they called it. She called it a cage with manners. Her fingers brushed the table's edge, cool marble veined with silver. The memory came unbidden. Wyatt in chains, the bite of silver at his wrists. Enforcers dragging him back as havoc strained beneath his skin, fury incandescent, but beneath it, something far worse, fear. Not for himself, for her. The same fear she'd heard the night poison nearly claimed her. His hand covering hers in the dark, thumb tracing slow, grounding circles as if he could anchor her to the world by touch alone. I'd have lost the only thing that matters, he'd whispered. Raw, unguarded, real. He hadn't always been that man. Once, his power had been command alone, unyielding, absolute. But somewhere between fury and restraint, between silence and choice, something in him had shifted. Hardened into purpose, tempered into protection. She hated that her pulse responded to the thought of him now. Hated that safety had begun to sound like his voice, yet she couldn't deny it. The same force that once demanded obedience now stood between her and the world, quiet, relentless, willing to bleed. That truth frightened her more than the council ever had. Because if she believed it fully, if she let herself trust it, she would have no armor left at all. Joselyn crossed to the balcony, drawn by the pale spill of moonlight over marble. The doors opened without resistance. Cool night air rushed in, carrying salt and pine and the distant echo of Bloodmoon's forests. She stepped into the light. That was when the pull answered. Not longing, not weakness. A hum beneath her ribs, subtle, steady, alive. Her breath caught, her hand lifted to her sternum, fingers pressing where the ache bloomed, warm and insistent. Sora, she whispered. The silence did not answer with words. It answered with presence. A second heartbeat stirred beneath her skin, slow, deliberate, ancient, not waking yet, not rising, waiting. Joselyn closed her eyes, moonlight silvering her lashes. Whatever the council believed, whatever chains they trusted, they had not taken what mattered most, and soon, neither would be able to stop it. Chapter 43. The moon caught in the corridor as Michael crossed it, steps measured, silent. He'd heard the rumors already. Luna taken, Alpha bound in silver. Ariel's recklessness had forced the council's hand, but the ruin she left behind might yet serve him. He adjusted his cuffs as he walked. Fury was a distraction, purpose was a weapon. The guards outside Jocelyn's quarters straightened when his aura hit, restricted, one-managed. Not for me, he said, eyes glinting silver. Their throats bobbed at the command sunk into their bones. Step aside. His words left no space for refusal. They moved, slowly, reluctantly, but they moved. The latch clicked behind him as he entered the annex. The room was too fine. Polished stone, roses perfuming the air, food laid out as though comfort could disguise captivity. Joselyn stood by the window, light silvering her hair. She turned at the sound. Michael. Her voice was steady and measured. You're bold. He took a breath, closing some distance between them. He stalked closer, gaze lingering where it shouldn't. Bold enough to see you, to say what no one else dares. His tone cut sharp, threaded with something dark. If you were mine, you wouldn't be locked in a gilded cage. No councils, no chains. You'd be at my side where no one could touch you. Her arms folded, her gaze unwavering. If I were yours, she said, I'd still be captive, just to a different jailer. Michael's mouth curved, promise in the shadow. You call it captivity, I call it claim. And you'd learn the difference. She didn't flinch. I know the difference. And I want neither. Her refusal settled under his skin, silent but heavy. He leaned forward, breath brushing her cheek. When the day comes you recognize what matters. No wall will hold me away. Her eyes narrowed. I am not yours to take. A small, satisfied curl to his lips. He turned, every step deliberate, leaving behind his presence more deeply than words ever could. Her defiance lingered behind him, like heat, one he intended to claim, not forget. The corridor stretched long and cold, torches guttering against the stone. Michael's footsteps struck hard in their rhythm, satisfaction burning through his chest. Joselyn was behind neutral doors, sealed, silenced, cut from her alpha. Soon she would see where she truly belonged. The air shifted, shadows rippled, a voice slid out of them like a blade unsheathing. "Bonds don't bend just because you bare your teeth, Alpha Michael." Alaric stepped from the dark, robes whispering like smoke. Amber eyes glowed faintly in the low light, ancient, deliberate. His presence wasn't heat or fury, it was gravity, cold, absolute. Michael stopped mid-stride. His wolf bristled, hackles lifting beneath his skin, instinct tightening his muscles. "Chancellor." "Michael." Alaric's nod was polite, almost bored, the kind of civility that carried more insult than rage. "You went to her." Michael's jaw flexed. "These are uneasy times. I offered her my support." Alaric's steps were soundless, but the corridor seemed to narrow with every one. "You mistake trespass for support." His eyes gleamed, sharp and knowing. Encounters in the dark, that spectacle in the ring. Whispers with your red-haired shadow, poison, all while thinking the council would raise you next. Michael's aura flared, hot and heavy, pushing back against the chill. "Careful, Chancellor." Alaric's mouth curved, a blade disguised as a smile. "Careful? No. I don't traffic in careful." His tone softened, silk drawn over iron. "I traffic in what comes next. And you, Michael Greymoon, you've already served your purpose." Michael's power surged, the air trembling with heat. "You think to toy with me?" Alaric's gaze didn't waver. "Toy?" A slow shake of his head. "You were inevitable and useful, so easy to bait, so eager to strut, a distraction." He paused, the faintest gleam of something darker behind his eyes. A pawn. Michael's fists trembled, chains of heat rippling through his aura. "I won't hear this game." He moved to step past, but Alaric's arm snapped out, iron strong, far too fast for a man his age. The impact stopped Michael cold. Power coiled beneath that grasp, wrong, layered, not the scent of a single wolf but something older, buried. His wolf stiffened beneath his skin, muscles locked, every instinct screaming alert. Alaric leaned close, voice low enough to chill the blood. "Think, Michael, an alpha evaluation. Wyatt's rival summoned to Bloodmoon. Did you never wonder why?" Michael's eyes flickered. "You think you used me?" "No," Alaric murmured. "I revealed you. While you snapped and postured, the council watched, and you kept your lustful eyes fixed where I needed them." Michael's rage cracked the air. "I am no one's pawn." Alaric's voice cut through, soft and precise. "You were distracted, by pride, by ambition, by the delusion that breaking Wyatt would clear your path, and by your hunger for another Alpha's Luna." He leaned in, whisper brushing like frost, trying to claim what was never yours to awaken. Michael's jaw set hard, confusion and fury twisting together. "Awaken? What in hell are you?" Alaric's hand lifted, palm open, and the air itself seemed to pause. Quiet now. The words dropped soft as velvet, final as law. "Your part is finished. Now you serve your true purpose." He flicked his fingers. "Take 'em." Silver flashed as enforcers poured from the dark, armor catching the torchlight. Michael roared, power slamming against steel. The first length of silver chain caught his wrist and hissed. "You dare touch me?" His voice cracked through the hall, half snarl, half command. "I am an alpha." The silver bit deeper. His wolf surged through the burn, power rippling hot enough to blister the air. Still he fought, teeth bared, fury a living thing. "I am not your pawn." 4 enforcers bore down. Strength guttered under the sting, but defiance burned through the pain. The lead enforcer's tone was flat, merciless. "By decree of the council, you are seized for trespass on neutral ground." Michael spat, voice rough but unbroken. "You think you can bind me like a rogue?" He drew a ragged breath, eyes burning. Then he raised his head, defiance spilling into a roar that filled the hall. "I am an alpha. You don't bind me, you bow." From the shadows, Alaric's voice lingered, low, composed, already finished with him. "Alpha." His smile curved, thin as a knife. "You were never more than the noise I needed, the flare before the dark." He turned, robes whispering away, and the torches dimmed as he passed. Michael strained once more against the silver, breath shaking. When the hall fell silent, only the echo of his defiance remained, ragged and small against the stone. Chapter 44. The scent of silver and smoke still choked Wyatt's office, proof the sanctum hadn't let go of him yet. The burns on his wrists throbbed beneath the linen wraps, a dull ache that pulsed in time with the memory of her voice. "You swore to protect me. Now, let me shield you." The words haunted like a brand. He could still hear the rasp in her throat, the tremor she'd tried to hide. For the first time since claiming Bloodmoon, he questioned the vow that had defined him. What was the worth of an alpha's strength if his Luna had been dragged from his side caged, shamed, guarded by men who didn't bleed his scent? The thought tore through him like claws. Had he failed her, or simply failed to understand what it meant to protect her? "Alpha?" Sebastian's voice pulled through the haze. Wyatt didn't answer. He stood at the window, hands braced on the sill, eyes burning toward the neutral horizon. Sebastian said his name again, steadier this time. Wyatt turned, the motion sharp. "What?" he asked, harsher than intended. Havoc prowled restless beneath his skin, a low vibration under his ribs. "The elders demand answers," Sebastian said. "I've arranged a meeting. They're restless about the Luna." Wyatt's jaw flexed, the muscle ticking once. Let them be restless. His voice was quiet, dangerous. Before Sebastian could answer, the door slammed open. Stefan burst in, breath ragged, scent thick with adrenaline. "Alpha, news from the border. Neutral enforcers have seized Alpha Michael. They claim trespass." He tried to reach the Luna. Wyatt's voice cracked like thunder, rattling the glass panes. "On my land? While she's locked behind their walls? They call this protection." Stefan swallowed hard. He resisted. They bound him in silver. He's being taken somewhere, no one knows where. Wyatt's breath hit once, sharp and lethal. His mind began to race, the alpha instinct mapping the chain of failure. Who had opened the gates? Which guard had seen the approach? Who had sounded the alarm too late? Each missing link fed the fury building behind his ribs. He tore away from the window, crossing the room in a single stride. The movement shook the lamplight. "Where is the Chancellor?" "In the library," Sebastian said. "He hasn't moved since dawn." Wyatt strode for the door, fury trailing him like a storm front. His beta and gamma followed close, their silence the sound of loyalty. Wolves along the corridor flattened to the walls, throats bared, eyes down, the pressure of their alpha's aura turning the air heavy as iron. He threw the library doors wide. Lamplight spilled over rows of books, dust motes swirling in the disturbed air. Alaric stood at the center table, his robes untouched by traveler temper, sliding a tome shut with unhurried grace. He looked up as though Wyatt's arrival had been anticipated. "Alpha," Alaric said smoothly. Wyatt halted a few paces away, shoulders squared, power barely leashed. "Explain." Alaric's voice was carved in calm. Michael pressed beyond his bounds, he said. "Order was restored. The council will answer the rest." Wyatt's eyes burned gold at the edges, his voice rough but measured. "You call this protection, yet a wolf crossed your border and reached for my Luna. Silver chains and velvet walls do not make her safe, Chancellor." Alaric's expression didn't change, only the light caught faint amber in his eyes. "And now he is dealt with. The chamber will judge." Wyatt stepped closer, the temperature of the room seeming to drop under his presence. "Then I will be there. If Michael is brought before the council, I will stand in that chamber." Alaric inclined his head, that faint smile curving like precision. "As Alpha, your presence will be expected." Wyatt's breath came slow, heavy with restraint. "See that no other wolf slips past your guard, because if she is touched again under your custody, Chancellor," his voice fell to a low blade, "I will burn your halls to cinders and drag every man who sheltered that hand into the square to answer for it. I will make your laws sing of ash." Alaric bowed slightly, serene as ever. "You have my assurance." Wyatt turned on his heel, his fury leashed but vibrating through the floorboards with every step. His unit fell in behind him, the storm following where he walked. He didn't see Alaric linger in the lamplight, one hand resting lightly on the shut book. The faint curve of his mouth betrayed the calm satisfaction of a man who had already counted the next move. He watched the doorway where Wyatt had gone, eyes gleaming like banked flame. "Michael Greymoon," he murmured, voice soft as dust, was always meant to fall. The light dimmed as he turned the hourglass beside him, the sand beginning its slow descent. Alaric watched it a moment longer, lips barely moving. The snare is set. All that's left is for the wolf to wake. Chapter 45. The council chamber breathed heat and shadow, the air dense with judgment. Elders leaned forward at the long table, warriors lined the walls, the weight of their silence pressing like stone. The doors opened. Michael stepped inside, silver gleaming against his skin. He carried himself like the chains were for ceremony, not punishment, each measured stride a quiet refusal to bow. Trespassing? He scoffed. That's the charge? You think the Alpha of Grey Moon skulks like some Omega sneaking scraps? Ridiculous. Wyatt stood at the head of the room, shoulders rigid, Havoc restless beneath his skin. He said nothing, but his gaze was iron, cold, fixed, lethal. Michael's silver-gray eyes locked on him, lips curling. Tell me, Bloodmoon, did she whisper it to you? The way your Luna bared her throat for me, she didn't seem to mind my company. A low growl vibrated through Wyatt's chest, Havoc pushing to the surface. In 2 strides, he was face to face with Michael. The chamber tensed, Bloodmoon, wolves bristling, visiting alphas leaning forward, hungry for a fight. Wyatt bent low, his voice quiet as steel dragged across bone. Breathe her name again, and I'll show you what it means when an alpha decides your last moment. You think silver burns? You haven't felt me yet. Michael's fury faltered just for a heartbeat. Alaric rose. His voice was calm, precise, sharp as a blade drawn under candlelight. Alpha Wyatt, this ground is neutral. You will leash yourself accordingly. His gaze shifted to Michael. This is not about trespass alone. Evidence ties you to rogue incursions, poison in Bloodmoon's hall, and plots meant to fracture a pack's crown. Murmurs rippled down the chamber. Elders' claws drumming, warriors trading uneasy glances, visiting alphas scenting tension like blood in the air. Michael's eyes narrowed to slits as realization struck. His snarl cracked through the stillness. Lies, manufactured lies, his glare slashed to Alaric. You've spun this from the start. You want me for your scapegoat. The Chancellor's amber gaze held him, steady and unflinching, smooth, contained, unbothered. An alpha's first defense should be strength, not excuse. The words fell soft, final, like judgment already written. Bring her in, an elder commanded. Ariel stepped forward, copper hair gleaming, shawl clutched tight around her shoulders. Her voice trembled just enough to sound human. I was afraid to speak, she said, gaze flicking between faces. He's an alpha. Who would believe me? But I saw him by the wine, the vial in his hand, silver, small. He said the Luna deserved her fate. Gasps rippled through the hall. Elders leaned closer, some whispering, others scowling. Michael jerked against his chains, fury raw and blistering. You dare? After everything you betray me? His voice split the air. Liar! Snake! Tell them the truth. But Ariel dropped her gaze, trembling perfectly on cue. The truth is what I've spoken. At the far end of the table, Luther's expression hardened. All theater. His eyes swept the room, noting every look, every tremor. Michael roared, veins standing in his neck. She lies because she's told to. Alaric, damn you, Chancellor, this is your hand. His voice cracked, ragged with fury. You think you can set me up and they'll never see it? Alaric did not respond. The silence where his answer should have been was louder than any denial. Ask your Bloodmoon Alpha. Michael spat, chest heaving. The contract. His Luna was never his by bond, only by paper. He chained her, and now you chain me. The words ignited the room. Elders surged forward, voices clashing. Visiting alphas barked questions. Whispers of scandal rolled through the air like distant thunder. Warriors strained to restrain Michael as he fought, chains screaming against stone. Luther's gaze swept the table once more, searching for the Chancellor's steady calm amid the storm. But the chair at the end of the table was empty. No door had opened. No sound. Marked his leaving. Only absence. Luther's pulse stumbled. Then the noise consumed everything again. The council chamber drowned in chaos. Accusations, growls, the metallic sting of silver in the air, and beyond the din, somewhere past the council walls, a shadow moved, silent, certain, toward what mattered most. Chapter 46. The council's uproar thudded through the stone like a distant drumbeat. Joselyn stood at the window, watching pale light waver across the courtyard below. Since her arrival in the neutral wing, unease had clung to her, subtle, persistent, like damp wool against bare skin. Something was wrong. The hush beyond the door pressed too close, no boots pacing, no guards trading bored words, not even the scrape of armor against stone. Absence. The latch clicked. The door opened without resistance. He was not a guard. Alaric stepped inside alone. The corridor's silence came with him, folding inward as if the world itself had drawn breath and chosen not to release it. His movements were unhurried, almost delicate. No rustle of cloth, no echo of boots, only that unbearable stillness. Amber eyes fixed on her, steady, intent, ancient. He smelled faintly of ash and cold metal. Luna Joselyn, he said softly, his voice dropping like a coin into deep water. It is time. Her spine locked. Chancellor. He closed the door behind him with a quiet click. The council roars, Alaric murmured, amusement ghosting his tone. But noise has never been for you. His gaze slid over her, slow and appraising. Noise is a curtain. This, he gestured to the space between them, is the stage. Her pulse hammered. She backed away. What are you doing here? His smile did not reach his eyes. You are rare, he said. A vessel shaped by the moon herself. Something old sleeps beneath your skin, Luna. His head tilted, and I have waited a very long time to wake it. I don't... Her breath snagged. You're wrong. Alaric extended his hand, courtly precise. Come, do not make me take what has always been mine. Never. She shoved past him for the door. He moved faster than thought. Fingers closed around her forearm, iron beneath skin. Pain flared sharp and blinding as his grip crushed tendon against bone. She clawed at his sleeve, nails skidding uselessly, a strangled cry tearing free. He hushed her, calm as prayer. Shh, he whispered. We do this gently. Silver flashed. Not a blade, a right. The needle kissed her skin, and fire flooded her veins, liquid flame racing upward, devouring breath and thought alike. Heat climbed her throat, flooding her mouth with a taste of metal and ash. Alaric watched with reverent focus, as though witnessing scripture made flesh. There, he murmured, thumb brushing the puncture at her neck. The beginning always burns. Her heartbeat thundered once, then staggered. Beneath it, another rhythm answered, deeper, older. The air shimmered, faint light stirring at the edges of her vision. She tried to speak. The words blistered away, her knees gave. Alaric caught her easily, cradling her weight with unsettling care. Sleep, Luna, he breathed against her temple. When you wake, your wolf will know its master. He straightened, lifting her as if she weighed nothing. Silence reclaimed the room, hot, patient. The scent of burned metal lingered, coiling through the air like memory. Beyond the walls, the council's uproar surged on, voices clashing, judgment cracking stone. No one noticed the hollow corridor. No one saw the chancellor slip into the dark, the quiet following him like a shadow. And while Bloodmoon drowned in chaos, Alaric carried away the future he had always intended to claim. Chapter 47. The council would keep barking. Joselyn had waited long enough. Wyatt turned and walked out. Sebastian and Stefan fell in tight behind him, both wolves bristling, anger riding their heels. Wyatt's stride cut down the annex corridor in clipped, lethal beats. Lights streaked along the walls as he passed. Shadows fled from the force of his aura. Neutral warriors bowed, necks bared without being told. Instinct answering the storm. Jocelyn's door appeared ahead. Two enforcers snapped to attention. Open it, Wyatt commanded. One swallowed. Alpha, this wing is designated neutral. Our orders are... Wyatt stepped close enough for the torchlight to catch the gold burning in his eyes. This is my land, he said. Move. The door opened. Wyatt pushed it wide, and the world went silent. The chamber was empty, blanket folded, cup half drunk, the air still warm with her absence. Wyatt's breath didn't come, didn't try. The quiet pressed in like a hand around his throat. Sebastian froze beside him, every muscle locked. Stefan's wolf bled through his skin in ripples of silver agitation. Wyatt inhaled. Vanilla, wildflowers, and beneath it, a thin metallic note that did not belong. His jaw tightened until bone creaked. Something inside him buckled, then broke open, slow and terrible. Wyatt moved. Sebastian tore through the bathroom. Nothing. Stefan rattled the window latch, still locked. His lips peeled back in a silent snarl. Wyatt rounded on the guards. They flinched before he touched them. He took the nearest one anyway, slamming him into the stone wall hard enough to send cracks racing outward like veins. His claws half-formed, curling into the enforcer's collarbone. Where is she? Wyatt's voice came layered. Man and beast fused, vibrating the air. The guard choked. Alpha, I swear we've seen no one. Wyatt's claws pressed deeper, not puncturing, yet. So she just vanished while you stood watch? The second guard stepped back, hands raised, shaking. Alpha, please. Our shift just started. We saw nothing. Wyatt released the first guard. He hit the ground, gasping. A glimmer under the bed caught Wyatt's eye. He crouched. A syringe, silver sheen, fresh. The scent hit him. Wolfsbane. A beat of pure, catastrophic silence. Then havoc lunged. Heat ripped through Wyatt's chest, a roar jagged against the back of his throat, too vast to escape. Mine. Taken. He rose slowly, every line of him carved from restrained violence. The walls seemed to tighten around him. Whoever took her dies, Wyatt said, voice low and final. The vow dropped into the room like a prophecy. Havoc snarled inside him, claws scraping bone. A single truth burning through them both, ours. Take it. Chapter 48. Light swam before her eyes, too bright, too soft to belong to waking. Cold stone pressed hard against her spine. Joselyn gasped and tried to move. Iron clanked in answer. Chains bit into her wrists. Silver runes flaring where metal met skin. Hot, searing, alive. The sting snapped her fully awake. She was barefoot. Beneath her feet, black stone spread wide and smooth, veins of silver light pulsing through it in slow, measured rhythm. Her rhythm. Each glow rose with her heartbeat, brightened, then dimmed, until she couldn't tell where her pulse ended and the altars began. The air burned of wolfsbane and smoke. Her throat rasped, "Where am I?" The chamber answered with silence. Then something moved. Moonlight poured through an open roof far above, and a figure stepped into its spill as if the night itself had made room. Alaric. Silver traced the seams of his robes, catching the light like frozen fire. In his hand he carried a crystal staff, its core alive with swirling mist, shapes drifting inside like ghosts suspended in water. "This altar was carved for you," he said calmly, "long before you were born." Joselyn strained against the chains. The runes flared brighter in response. "Why?" "Because you are the last vessel left." He turned the staff slowly. Within the crystal, wolf shapes surfaced. Dozens, hundreds, flickering, howling without sound. The moon scattered fragments of herself across bloodlines. Alaric continued, voice reverent, almost devotional. "I gathered them. Every spark, every stolen echo." His gaze lifted to her, burning with certainty. "All but yours." Her pulse slammed. "This is madness." He smiled faintly. "Madness is what the blind call vision." He stepped closer. The light bent around him, reluctant to touch. "Zora is the moon's heart," he said. "When she wakes, her bond will reach for its other half. If her true mate still lives, that awakening will crown him. Alpha Divine." The words struck stone deep. Together, Alaric said softly, "They would unmake the order of this world." His eyes gleamed. "But I have outgrown order." The chamber hummed in answer, the sound sinking into her bones like a struck bell. "When Zora's light merges with mine, there will be no crowns, no borders. Vampires will kneel. Witches will serve." His voice lowered, intimate. "Even the sun will bow to my night." He looked at her then, not hungry, not cruel, almost tender. "Your parents knew what you were," he said. "They bled to keep you from me. When their blood touched the earth, Zora hid again, curled deep inside you." His fingers tightened on the staff. "That wait is over." The runes ignited. Silver fire raced outward beneath the stone, veins blazing like lightning trapped under glass. The hum deepened, slow, immense, alive. Heat surged beneath her skin. Light bloomed inside her chest, bright enough to see through flesh. She cried out as threads of radiance tore free, lifting toward the staff like water answering gravity. Pain struck, sharp, dazzling, total. Alaric watched in rapture as her body arched against the chains. "Beautiful," he breathed. "The soul does not yield, it remembers." Inside the crystal the wolves thrashed, their silent howls clawing at the glass. Alaric tilted his face to the moon. "Not yet." The pull eased, just enough to keep her conscious. The crown isn't complete. The hum thickened, vibrating through bone and blood. Her breath came ragged, caught between screams and empty silence. "When the moon reaches zenith," he murmured, "her light will break from flesh." The glow inside her chest faltered, stuttered, like a failing heart. "I will become," he whispered, "what the gods abandoned." The chamber shuddered. The chains groaned. The pull returned, violent, absolute. The air fractured. Light tore from her in one final surge, blinding, devouring. And through it all, Alaric's voice came soft, triumphant. "When the moon crowns, she is mine." Silence fell, dense, sacred, wrong. Alaric lowered the staff. Its core now churned with stolen radiance, brighter, heavier than before. "The seal is breaking," he whispered. Outside the temple, the forest shuddered. Chapter 49. Wyatt burst through the annex doors, Sebastian and Stefan at his heels, Bloodmoon's elite locking into formation the moment they hit open air. Fury drove him, havoc tearing inside his chest, every heartbeat a claw. She was out there. Every breath without her felt like bleeding. Her scent hit him first, vanilla and wildflowers frayed sharp with fear. It sliced through the cold and punched straight into his ribs. "This way," he growled, the command half wolf, half man. They plunged into the trees. The forest swallowed them whole, branches whipping, roots clawing, moonlight flashing between trunks like blades. Her scent burned ahead of him, bright as a fuse. Every stride hammered Havoc's rhythm, faster, faster, faster. The shift ripped through him mid-run. Bones lengthened, reformed, black fur burst from skin, his senses sharpening to scent and sound. Havoc hit the ground running, a massive shadow, dark as a storm front, eyes blazing gold. The forest bent to his speed. Behind him, Sebastian and Stefan shifted, gray and steel shadows flanking their alpha, the pack thundering as one, but none could match Havoc. He ran like he was built for this night. The trees broke. Moonlight spilled across stone and moss, the air heavy with ash and age. Symbols glowed faint beneath his paws. The temple. Havoc halted, hackles spiking. The silence was wrong, too measured, too watchful. Then, pads shifting in brush, breath rasping, claws scraping stone. Eyes opened in the dark. Dozens. Rogues slid from the shadows, scarred in Alaric's carved patterns, brined in his corruption. Hunger dripped from their jaws. Sebastian eased left, Stefan right. Bloodmoon tightened their line until bodies brushed fur to fur. The air held its breath. The first rogue lunged. The clearing exploded. Havoc met it mid-leap, jaws locking around its throat with a crack that echoed off stone. He ripped free, spun, and tore into another, blood arcing across moonlight. The pack surged behind him, gray and steel carving through the swarm. The night filled with tearing flesh, ragged snarls, the wet sound of wolves hitting earth. Runes flared underfoot, glowing, hotter with every drop of blood spilled. Still the rogues pressed in. Still Havoc tore through them. His fury was a weapon, raw, merciless, unstoppable. When the last of his warriors fell behind him, he drove harder, muscles coiling into a final burst. He slammed through the thinning line, tore down the final rogue in his path, and hurled himself at the temple doors. Stone shuddered. Hinges groaned, fractured, and gave way under the weight of him. Thunder rolled through the mountain. Behind him, battle raged, snarls and bone and blood. He didn't look back. Every muscle pulled him forward, toward the scent that haunted the air beyond the doorway. He paused at the threshold, blood steaming off his fur, breath ghosting white in the cold, sacred dark. Silence waited, deep, ancient, wrong. He stepped through, and the temple swallowed him whole. Havoc's voice rose inside him. Ours, bring her back. Wyatt moved forward without hesitation. Chapter 50. The temple breathed like a beast too long starved. Cold light flickered over the walls, runes bleeding faint silver along the floor. Wolf's bane and blood burned in the air. Joselyn hung bound against the altar, wrists raw, silver strobing beneath her skin where Zora strained to rise. The pole waited, hungry, relentless, unfinished. A tremor rolled beyond the doors, closer, growing, like something too big for walls. Alaric's smile sharpened. He comes, but even your alpha cannot break a sanctum blessed by the moon. The doors detonated inward. Havoc filled the threshold, black as a starless storm, eyes molten gold. He saw her chained to the altar. His growl wasn't sound. It was a breaking that traveled through stone. Alaric laughed softly. So the moon sends me a wolf in his fury. Bones split, flesh warped. The Chancellor's form swelled into something monstrous. Black hide stretched tight over veins of liquid silver, power leaking like rot. Havoc did not wait. He launched. Impact cracked the floor. Pillars shuddered. Black and silver collided, claws sparking, teeth driving deep, bodies slamming against stone hard enough to tear runes from the walls. Havoc ripped, tore, devoured, every movement a brutal promise carved in flesh. Alaric struck back, each blow ringing like metal screaming. Across the chamber, Joselyn jerked against her chains. The bonds shrieked under the strain. Her eyes locked on Havoc's, gold burning through fury until it hit her. Something in her answered. Her breath tore from her lungs. Not a word, a confession ripped from the soul. Mate. The world stopped. No sound, no air, no sanctum. Only the gravitational pull snapping into place between wolf and woman, destiny slamming shut like a door. Silver crashed into gold. Recognition, ancient absolute, roared awake. Havoc surged with it, gold fire ripping through muscle and bone. His form widened, fur blazing at the tips, claws elongating with brutal clarity. He moved like something too powerful for a body. Rage sharpened into purpose. Between them, the bond ignited, fierce, fated, burning white-hot. Alaric staggered back, horror cracking his monstrous face. Impossible, he rasped. Fated wolves, after all this time? Jocelyn's body arched, and broke. Bone shifted, reshaping beneath her skin. Silver fire streaked down her arms as joints snapped, reformed. Her spine bowed as new strength roared through her marrow. Claws slid from her fingers, shining like blades pulled from moonlight. Her cry rose, deep and ancient, no longer human. Zora rose. Silver erupted outward, slicing across the chamber, shattering runes like brittle bone. Havoc staggered back, not in fear but awe, the gold in his chest answering her birth cry. Side by side they stood, Alpha and Luna, gold and silver, storm and moonlight. Alaric reeled, half man, half beast, smoke rising where divine fire scorched corruption. Impossible, he choked. Centuries of stolen wolves undone by a single bond. Impossible. His scream convulsed into laughter. You think I came alone? Howls exploded below. Dozens, then more, swelling until the walls vibrated like a drum. Havoc pivoted toward the sound, muscles coiling. Zora stepped into place beside him, silver breath pulsing from her lungs like a living force. Their bond thrummed, a heartbeat shared. The rogues poured in, a black tide, claws glinting, eyes dead and feral. Havoc met them with merciless brutality. He hit the first wave with enough force to crater the stone, jaws locking, spine snapping beneath his weight. He ripped another clean off its feet, gold fire spilling from his bite. His movements were savage efficiency. Tear, crush, obliterate. Beside him, Zora didn't fight like a wolf. She fought like light weaponized. Her silver arcs cut wolves in half. Where her claws touched fur, bone crystallized into ash. She moved with a terrifying grace, each strike clean as a scythe through wheat. Together, they were one rhythm. Fury and precision, fire and moonlit steel. Zora's howl rose. Not rage, not triumph, ascension. The shockwave blasted outward. Wolves flew like debris, fire clinging to them as they tumbled. From the altar's shadow, something crawled upright. Alaric, fractured, pulsing, half-rotted from his own corruption, dragged himself toward the dying basin. The tendrils turned. They struck as one, silver spears punching through chest and throat. His scream twisted between human and beast as his own magic devoured him. Light burst from his ribs, wolves made of pure radiance tearing free in a torrent. Their howls braided together, rising into a spectral hymn that shook the sanctum walls. One by one they dissolved. Each release peeled another layer from him. Alaric collapsed inward, bones caving, flesh charring black where divine power reclaimed what he stole. Zora stood amid the ruin, silver head lifted toward the night pouring through the shattered roof. Havoc moved to her side, shoulder brushing hers, blood steaming from his fur, breath ragged but alive. Between them the air braided, gold and silver pulsing slow like a sleeping heart. Moonlight kissed the blood and broken stone, soft and clean once more. The storm was finally over. In the hush that followed, Havoc lowered his head. Zora met him there, forehead to forehead, as mates finally whole. Chapter 51. Dawn broke over Bloodmoon territory as they crossed the ridge, pale gold spilling over stone, smoke rising from chimneys, the breath of home warming the cold air. The moment Joselyn stepped across the border, the land itself seemed to exhale. Pine, hearth smoke, earth turned by familiar hands. Her lungs ached with it, the scent of belonging sharp and overwhelming after so much darkness. Wyatt walked beside her, shoulders brushing hers, the pack falling into formation without a word. Not commanded, called. Havoc hummed low beneath Wyatt's skin, steady certain. Zora curled quiet beneath Joselyn's, no longer a storm, but a rising tide. They descended toward the packhouse clearing. The first wolf stopped dead in his tracks, his chest hitched, eyes wide, then wet. Slowly, reverently, he lowered himself to his knees, bowing until his forehead touched the earth. A second wolf saw, and dropped beside him. A third, a fourth. Then the whole clearing moved like wind through wheat. Wolves, warriors, elders, omegas, every one of them sinking to the dirt, throats bared, palms spread to the soil. Not because of title, because she had come back. A murmur rose, one voice becoming many. Alpha, Luna. Jocelyn's breath trembled, Zora pushing softly against her ribs, humbled, not proud. Wyatt turned toward her, and in front of his entire pack, the alpha who bowed to no one dropped to one knee. Not a symbol, not for show, a vow. Jocelyn's heart stuttered. She touched his hair, her fingers trembling. "I'm here," she whispered, not a reassurance, but a promise. Wyatt rose slowly, gold catching silver in the morning light. His voice was low, carved from truth. "Mine." This time it wasn't claim, it was homecoming. A small child pushed through the line, barefoot, curls tangled, clutching a wooden wolf worn smooth by hands much smaller than his. She held it out with both arms. For the Luna. The clearing held its breath. Joselyn knelt, despite exhaustion, despite trembling knees, and took. With both hands, as though accepting a relic. "Thank you," she said softly. The child's smile broke something open in the crowd. Relief, joy, release. Wyatt leaned close, voice meant only for her. "You're exhausted." She nodded. He scooped her into his arms with a tenderness that rippled quiet through the pack. One by one, wolves bowed deeper, honoring not a title, but a bond. Inside the pack house, firelight flickered against stone walls. The hearth crackled as though welcoming her back. The warmth hit her like memory. Jocelyn's eyes fluttered closed against his shoulder, bone-deep weary, Zora humming softly, a quiet promise in her blood. Safe at last, held, truly held. Home, and in the quiet of her return, wrapped in firelight in his arms, The world remembered how to be gentle with them again. Chapter 52. By the time the door closed, the noise of the pack had faded. Only their breathing remained, and the slow crackle of the hearth. Steam, cedar, and the faint trace of rain clung to the air. The warmth from the fire kissed the room in gold. Joselyn stood near the flames, linen robe belted loosely at her waist, damp hair dark against her skin. Zora's light still shimmered beneath her flesh, too much life for one body to contain. Each breath trembled faintly at the edges of her, every heartbeat a reminder that she had returned, that she still existed. Wyatt watched her from the doorway, towel low at his hips, ember light stroking the planes of his chest and shoulders. Power moved beneath his skin, not alpha command now, but hunger held on a careful leash. The sight of her, barefoot, alive, wrapped in firelight, caught low in his chest. He had never wanted anything more, or feared breaking anything less. She met his gaze. The bond pulled taut, a living thread under her skin. "I thought he would empty me," she whispered, "that I'd be nothing but a vessel." Wyatt crossed the room slowly, the air tightening with every step he took toward her. He touched her jaw, thumb brushing her pulse, the place he had almost lost forever. "You came back to me," he said, voice rough. "That's all I ever wanted." Then lower, havoc rising behind the words. "No one takes you from me. Not Alaric, not anyone. You are mine, Joselyn. Always." The word didn't claim. It settled, warm, magnetic, an answer to a vow she had already made inside her bones. Heat unfurled beneath her skin, gold and silver twining heartbeat to heartbeat. She pressed her palms to his chest, feeling havoc thrum beneath his ribs. Their pulses aligned, two storms finding the same shore. "Then take me," she breathed. Half challenge, half surrender, wholly his. His mouth met hers. Not the hunger of battle, not the force of dominance, but relief, certainty, an exhale that tasted like surviving something impossible together. Firelight washed over them, turning skin to gold, shadow to silk. When his lips left hers, his mouth found her throat. The brush of his breath made her knees weaken. "Say it," he rasped, voice a low vibration against her skin. "Yours." Her head tipped back, pulse thrumming beneath his teeth. Havoc surged. Canines lengthened, sharp, gleaming, catching the fire's glow as a low growl rolled through his chest. He bit, gently, deliberately, a claiming etched in fire. Heat, alive and electric, shot through her veins as blood welled bright and fast, her scent flooding the room. Joselyn gasped, fingers sliding into his hair, anchoring him. Zora rose in fierce answer, silver shimmering beneath her skin. Gold blazed in Wyatt's eyes, silver ignited in hers. Her own canines descended, instinct answering instinct, and she marked him back, her bite sinking into the place where his pulse pounded wild beneath his jaw. The world split open. Light, breath, wolf, a burst of heat and power, gold slamming into silver until everything went white hot. Their wolves' howls tangled beneath the skin, soundless but shattering. Wyatt pressed his forehead to hers, breath trembling, his hands cradling her waist as though reverence alone was keeping him upright. Joselyn exhaled against his skin, the glow between them soft and steady, their bond humming like a living thing. For a heartbeat there was nothing to lead or guard, only the quiet of being known, wholly and without condition. The fire answered, burning low and golden, casting tides of light along the walls. Outside the storm was gone. What remained was the rhythm of two hearts beating in time. And in that warmth, in the place where wolf and woman, Alpha and Luna, man and Mott met, their bond answered the night with a single, quiet truth: they were home. Epilogue. 6 weeks later, the marking ceremony still shimmered through the night. Lanterns drifted like low stars across Bloodmoon's terraces, laughter spilling from the hall, and the moon watched from her silver throne above. Music, warmth, and the scent of cedar smoke wrapped the stronghold in peace rebuilt. Joselyn stood at the balustrade, the wind teasing her hair, the mate mark at her throat glimmering faint gold where Wyatt's claim met her own. The bond hummed through her chest, whole, warm, alive. For the first time in years, she wasn't preparing to fight or prove. She was simply home. Behind her came the soft rhythm she knew anywhere. Wyatt's heat brushed her back before his hands settled at her waist. He kissed the mark on her throat, soft, devoted. "The council closed its last chapter tonight," he murmured. "Michael's name cleared, though he won't wear an alpha crest again. Ariel walks as rogue by Bloodmoon's decree, and the chancellor's seat is gone for good, replaced by a circle of alphas who will share the chair in turn, each vote recorded, no voice above the law." He paused, his thumb brushing her waist with slow certainty. Theron, the elder who oversaw the reform, offered me the first seat. Joselyn turned toward him. What did you decide? Wyatt's faint smile answered her before his words did. My place isn't across a council table. My place is here, with you, with Bloodmoon. Relief softened her smile. Then maybe the goddess finally set the scales right. Wyatt's gaze held hers, moonlight catching the gold in his eyes. She reached up, fingers brushing the edge of his jaw. Any regrets? She asked, quiet as breath. His answer came without hesitation. Only that I didn't see you sooner. Her heart stumbled. Wyatt continued, voice low. Certain. The moon gave me more than a Luna, more than a mate. She gave me the part of my soul I didn't know was missing. Warmth spread through her chest. She lifted her hand to his jaw, fingers brushing the faint stubble. There. I have something to tell you, she whispered. He went still, soft, attentive in the way wolves listen to the shift of a heartbeat. She placed his hand gently against her stomach. Wyatt's breath caught, a single quiet sound that seemed to crack something open inside him. Then he dropped to one knee, no alpha, no storm, only devotion. He pressed his forehead to her stomach, voice a broken whisper of wonder. Bloodmoon's air. Her fingers slid into his hair as emotion trembled through both of them, something too full to contain, too sacred for words. Lantern light flickered across the terrace, casting warm gold along Wyatt's cheekbones and catching silver in Joselyn's hair. Above them, the moon burned steady, silver and gold braided across their embrace, and in that quiet, where warmth met promise and love settled deep into bone, the future of Bloodmoon found its beginning. You've reached the end of the Bloodmoon, Luna. Thank you for listening to Alpha Tales by Rowan Kincaid. If you'd like more stories shaped by power, restraint, and moonlight, consider subscribing, and if this one stayed with you, you're welcome to leave a comment. Until next time, trust the moon.